OTB AM.
With Gillette, your most supported our frontline workers this Movember.
And we're live. Nathan Murphy, good morning to you. Perfect timing.
Good morning.
Arriving at the far post just in time to nod it in there.
Wowzers.
Couldn't it
I
find?
took at the watch and went, 7:30, there's definitely something that happens around then.
Yeah. Welcome to the... You were too busy. You've been throwing an all-nighter celebrating the fact that Mayo are finally going to end the curse. It's written in the stars.
Yeah, at about 1:30 this morning, I was sort of humped over outside Coppers, knocking on the door, going, come on, lads, we need this, open up, we're back in business, baby. Yeah, strange all weekend, but here we are again. Mayo Dublin, part 4.
How do you bring yourself to believe? How do you work your way into thinking, actually, you know what, this is possible, come on, we can do it?
Well, the way in the cycle of Mayo in an All-Ireland final, particularly against Dublin and the most recent experiences of 16 and 17 is you start on the day you win the semi-final and you probably go out that night and obviously, you know, you're starting to believe a little bit, but then you crash back down to earth on the Monday when you see how impressive Dublin have been. You start talking, we're living in Dublin, so you're hearing about Brian Fenton being the greatest player of his generation, or maybe Kieran Kilkenny is, or maybe Conor Callaghan is. Doesn't matter. They've got 3 of them there for starters and a whole load of them emerging. And over the course of the next sort of week, 10 days, you start to realise, actually, nobody has a hope in hell of beating Dublin. But then something magical starts to happen. The Mayo people start to get together on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday of All-Ireland final weekend. And by Saturday night, there's thousands of Mayo people taking over the city. And as you look at each other's eyes, you know, anything is possible. We can achieve great things. We are the one county who can finally stand up and stop this juggernaut. And by the time it gets to throw in on the Sunday, this is on an ordinary year, you go, you know what? Not only should Mayo win this, Mayo are the better team. Look at 1 to 15. Mayo could take this Dublin team every day of the week. And that sort of feeling of, yes, why not, continues till pretty much the 70-minute mark when, again, the crushing dawn of reality sets in. And
Will it be a couple of own goals or changing your goalkeeper? Is that how the Harry Kiri will happen this time? Is that how the self-sabotage is about to unfold? Will there be a massive row at training this week somehow? Will there be an outbreak of COVID? Who knows? What new and mysterious way will the curse find to work its magic?
Well, you think back to 2014, we had the Aidan O'Shea, Cillian O'Connor clash in the middle of the pitch where both of them end up having to go off eventually. Anything that can go wrong has gone wrong and will continue to go wrong. But maybe in 2020, everything in the world has gone wrong and Mayo can just put everything right again. Maybe that is what the destiny is. So, yeah, there will definitely be occasions over the next 10, 12 days where Mayo supporters will sit down, they'll talk to each other on the phone. As David Brady's making the calls, confidence will start to grow and there will be a belief there that they can, at the very least, match Dublin. Already, all the conversation is around the 2 finals, how Mayo pushed them so close. I probably should have won those games and actually at times were the better team in those games. Everyone's forgetting about last year's All-Ireland semi-final. That never even happened. That second half. So, yeah, listen, you're in an All-Ireland final. It's bonus territory, Ger, right now from where Mayo were, being relegated from Division 1. And
so last year's
they know what they're doing.
Last year's semi-final, were Mayo ahead at half-time and Dublin scored
2 points ahead at half-time. And again, there's something about Mayo, unfortunately, that brings the very best out of Dublin because I think the 2 All-Ireland finals, 16, 17 and the replay, were among the greatest games of Gaelic football that have ever been played in terms of skill, intensity, ferocity, everything. Mayo brought it like no team has brought it. Even Kerry last year, Mayo got it to a different level where they matched Dublin and forced Dublin to produce their greatest performances. And then even last year where I don't think Mayo were anywhere near where they were a couple of years ago, they led by 2 points at half-time. And Dublin produced this 10, 12-minute spell. Was it 12 points in 12 minutes?
Something like
where
that. 2-4, I think.
It was
10 even.
insane what Conor Callaghan did. So, unfortunately, Dublin respond. Dublin always seem to respond.
Now,
but maybe they're going into this, you know, a little bit ill-prepared. No test.
Well, we're talking about the match as opposed to talking about the other main issue, which is the fact that Dublin keep dominating everybody they play and they keep annihilating teams. If Mayo were to win, does that kill all the arguments forever that we need to split Dublin, that the funding is wrong, that having a population centre of 1/3 of the country in the same competition as Longford and Leitrim and any other county, essentially, any other county, is this horribly imbalanced, kind of pointless competition when you think about it for more than 2 seconds?
Well, yeah, that is the problem, isn't it? Dublin fans do seem to be in this strange scenario where they spend half their weekends doing down their own team and constantly pointing out how they always just struggle to get the job done. Yeah, we might have won 5 in a row, but these guys, they're the exact same as everybody else. They just struggle. They just sort of fall over the line at times rather than accepting that they are the greatest Gaelic football team we've ever seen. Mayo may well win on Saturday week, but there's nothing that can be done to stop Dublin's dominance in the short term. If they don't win 10 in a row, they'll win 9 out of 10. If they don't win every Leinster championship for the next 5 years, that defeat is going to be the biggest shock in Irish sport that year. And no matter what you do and what conversations happen over the coming days, weeks, months, years, there's nothing in the short term that you can do to stop this Dublin side. No matter how much money you go and throw at other counties, they are going to win the vast majority of their games, and they're going to cruise to those games. And as much as we want to pick apart Dublin, like, there does need to be an acceptance of they have done things brilliantly with the money that was invested. That hasn't always happened. All right, they've got 10 times more money than anybody else from the GEA in that 10-year spell. Was it 18 million compared to what did Cork get, 1.6 million in terms of games development? But if you were looking in from the outside, if Dublin, the problem for Dublin is it's an amateur sport. If Dublin were a professional outlet and clubs were looking in or franchises were looking in from the outside, you would look at them and think this is as good as it gets. They have success, unprecedented success at elite level, setting a higher bar than we've ever seen before. And they're matching it at grassroots level. They're matching it in terms of participation. They've been able to turn Gaelic games into the #1 sport in the city. And in an ordinary sport, like every other sport around the world, what would happen is other clubs' franchises would go, we can do that with the right amount of money. But, as you say, the demographics of this country suggest that even if you were to throw huge money, which I'm sure will happen, a lot of money will go to the other counties, a third of the population is still going to live in Dublin. Probably 60, 70% of the best paid jobs are in Dublin. And all the expertise that goes with that, that's filtering down through the clubs. So Dublin have done pretty much everything right. They've been given a massive helping hand. They have a huge amount of things in their favour, but they don't really seem to be wasting any of the opportunities that they've been given. That definitely can't be said for most counties, albeit working off a far, far smaller pot of money.
Yeah, it's a really multifactorial issue that we have here. I do wonder if we had a competition where Dublin played, if we had a league-based competition for Sam Maguire where Dublin played half of their league games away from home, would we have a series of much closer games? If they were in Clonus in a league game, which was actually a championship match, would that be a close game? If they were in Ballywaffay in a championship match, would that be a close game? I'd like to see that competition before we fully get to the point of saying, okay, we're going to have to split Dublin now, because ultimately there's no point in continuing on this way. We also need to have a proper open conversation about what splitting Dublin would look like. What's the point of that? To what end? Is it just to weaken that team, or is it to allow the GAA to actually continue to grow and prosper? I think Pat Gilroy made the point about between the canals, Dublin have done essentially not very much when it comes to fostering GAA, and that's 500,000 people who aren't really interested, who aren't supporting or members of clubs, with a few exceptions, obviously. The competition stuff, if you sort that out and Dublin still dominate, and the likelihood is that they will, then you need to have had that conversation ready to go and say, right, that hasn't worked things, that hasn't made things in any way better.
Yeah, I think there's some basic things that probably will need to happen very quickly over the next couple of years, which is getting Dublin out of Croke Park more often, getting into a better system that's not just a straight knockout, that gives the best teams more of an opportunity to play against Dublin more often, that they're not this big bad beast that you have to turn up on one day and take that chance, that actually you're playing them on a regular basis, and that automatically raises standards. But Dublin's not going to slow down. So even if you go and you give 10 million to Westmeath, and that all that development funding is somehow taken out of Dublin, which again, I'm sure the GEA would think is a bit of madness to taking everything away from Dublin, considering how well they've done at underage level, considering how the participation levels are rising. There's still a huge amount of private funding that I don't think Dublin have tapped into at all. Never mind around the senior team. One of the main reasons that sponsors want to get involved in Dublin isn't just the success, isn't just the airtime that this Dublin team get. It's the fact you have this huge base of membership that they get to tap into by being a partner of Dublin football. Every club has that as well. And I don't get the sense from having a very small and relatively new involvement in a Dublin club at underage level. I don't get the sense that their clubs are massively going and exploiting every possible avenue for money in the way that, say, soccer clubs are desperately trying to get any penny they can into the club for survival. You get the sense, looking around at these Dublin clubs, these big Dublin clubs, that if they really wanted to go chasing money, there's a lot more of it there for them. But they don't do it at the moment. They're quite happy to keep it rolling over, to have a strong network of volunteers. And like people do now, and I don't like to get in because there's brilliant volunteers in every sport. There's brilliant volunteers in every county, but there's nowhere near the amount that there is in Dublin, again, simply because of participation. When you're getting academies,
I think success,
medium-sized Dublin clubs, and you have 20 coaches.
But success,
20, now not quite like, and I include myself in that, 20 parents at every session, if not more.
Success definitely helps. It absolutely does, and it becomes this rolling thing, and the momentum starts, and that's, I think, I saw Bernard Brogan getting hammered for saying, or for asking the question if every county is actually, if every county has a senior panel which is going to the lengths that the senior panellists in Dublin are going to, and there's no way that every county has the number of players going to the lengths that Dublin do, because everybody involved in Dublin knows that it's worth their while. But if you are an inter-county footballer from any one of 28 or 29 counties, you're probably not going to the same lengths as the lads in Kerry, Mayo, Tyrone and Donegal, and so, but there will be people in every panel who are doing exactly what they should do, but there aren't 40 of them, and that's the problem. That's one of the other problems that this success breeds.
Yeah, and listen, if you're not pulling your weight in that Dublin squad, no matter how talented you are, you won't start the next day, whereas most counties don't have that luxury. The one thing I would say in that is, like, you talk about those Mayo players there, and if you want to compare, say, what Stephen Cluxton does to what Rob Henley would do, well, 2-3 years ago, Rob Henley was having to travel to Mayo 3-4 times a week, spending 6-7 hours on the road, when Stephen Cluxton was tucked up in his bed, recuperating, having his rest. And that's the vast majority of counties. Dublin don't have that.
No, it's all stacked, and all those benefits stack up, and they're the matter of inches that make differences on the day. 7:43 here this morning.
Listen, Ger, we've come up with the conclusion. Split them. After all that, just split them.
In four. David Meyler is coming in about 2 minutes' time. Run you through the sports pages. Kieran Donaghy is going to give us his thoughts on the split, and Andy Moran is going to join us 8:35. Aisling O'Reilly is going to talk about the controversy with regards to the LGFA at the weekend. Alan Quinlan is going to look back on a decent performance from Ireland against Scotland. We've got pressure rankings at 9:20, and reaction from the rest of the weekend from our analysts around the grounds at 9:35. Phil is here. Phil, where are we starting?
We'll start with the FAI Cup final, and for the 5th time in
your mic isn't on there, Phil.
Years. Well, that would actually help, isn't it?
The FAI Cup final last night, didn't even get a look in, and a bit of drama.
Great game.
I'm good to go now.
Good, we're good.
Yeah, some gremlins must have turned that off when I had turned it on, but yeah, 5th time in 6 years that the FAI Cup final's gone to extra time, and it kind of looked like it was going to penalties like last season's one which Rovers won, but obviously Dundalk are the champions. 12th time that they lifted the FAI Cup, and David McMillan, the hat-trick hero for the Lily Whites, which also ended Shamrock Rovers' hopes of a domestic double. Tottenham are top of the Premier League on goal difference. They won 2-0 against Arsenal in the North London derby. Heung-min Son and Harry Kane with the goals for Spurs. Champions Liverpool beat Wolves 4-0 at Anfield, back up to 2nd place. Caoimhín Kelleher made his Premier League debut, a 2nd clean sheet of the week for the Cork goalkeeper. Mo Salah, Gini Wijnaldum and Joel Matip among the goals for Liverpool. Leicester are 4th. A late goal from Jamie Vardy saw them beat Sheffield United 2-1 at Bramall Lane. He then slid into the corner flag, smashed it up, and Crystal Palace won 5-1 away to 10-man West Brom. One game tonight, it's Brighton at home to Southampton. That game kicks off at 8 o'clock. More pressure on Celtic boss Neil Lennon, because Rangers are 13 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership. Celtic drew 1-1 at home to St Johnstone. Stephen Gerrard's side won 4-0 away to Ross County. The Republic of Ireland will find out their opponents for the World Cup qualifiers this evening. Stephen Kenny's side will be in pot 3 for the draw, which gets underway just after 5 o'clock. Mayo and Dublin will contest this year's All-Ireland Senior Football Final on the 19th of December. It's 3 years since they last met in a final. Cillian O'Connor scored 4-9 for Mayo as they ran out 5-20 to 3-13 semi-final winners over Tipperary at Croke Park yesterday. Before that game, you had Cork and Galway in the second of the All-Ireland Ladies Football semi-finals. That game was meant to be played at Parnell Park. It was switched to Croke Park at short notice due to an unplayable pitch at Donecarney. And Cork won by 217 to 13 points. So Cork will face champions Dublin in the final in 2 weeks. That final on the 20th of December. England won the inaugural Autumn Nations Cup yesterday in dramatic fashion. They beat France 22-19 at Twickenham. Eddie Jones' side scored a late try, so it went into extra time, and then Owen Farrell kicked the winning penalty in sudden death extra time. Neil Robertson held his nerve in the deciding frame to beat Judd Trump by 10 frames to 9 in the final of the UK Snooker Championship, nearly 1 a.m. before they finished. And here's one for your Monday morning. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is going to fight again, and what a fight in store. He's going to fight Logan Paul.
Oh, wow.
I know, yeah. It's pretty grim, isn't it? 20th of February, if anyone actually wants to watch
And what if Logan Paul wins? Is that a blemish on his record?
I mean, Logan Paul is on, he's a YouTuber. I think I'd rather watch Floyd Mayweather footage on YouTube than watch that fight.
Cheaper as well, because that's going to be about 50 quid, I think,
yeah.
Isn't it?
Possibly, yeah.
Phil, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. It is 7:47 here this morning on OTBAM. If you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to enter our competition here. In the run-up to Christmas, you can help celebrate an unusual festive season, and to stay close to the team of us, Vodafone want to fill your Christmas stocking. Every morning this week, we have a selection of great gifts to give away. This morning, you can win an Irish Rugby jersey, a signed copy of Rob Kearney's new book, No Hiding, and a set of wireless sports headphones. To get your name in the hat, just tell us who's today's mystery voice.
You could see that it was going to blow up, and it couldn't have been a senior players meeting actually, because David Wallace was in it.
To enter, just WhatsApp us your answer to OTB at 087 918 180. We'll reveal the answer and the winner before 10 a.m. If you don't win today, tune in again tomorrow for more chances to win. It's all thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. David Meyler, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning.
Nathan was doing commentary on the North London Derby.
Yeah.
And was saying that... well, Nathan, I'm going to let you ask the question. You were wondering how long Spurs players are going to be willing to tolerate the defensive nature of things. But if they're going to win the league, they're going to be pretty happy.
Well, it was one of the most bizarre games I've seen all season, in that Tottenham are clearly a far superior team to Arsenal right now in every part of the pitch, and could have gone and won that game, you felt, 4 or 5-0 if they really went and attacked Arsenal. But they were 2-0 up at half-time from 2 chances, and they never came out of their half in the second half. And I'm just wondering, listen, results are going the way. Is there any sense when you're playing that type of system, even if it is winning football, that frustration kicks in at some stage for those Spurs players and that they stop listening to their manager?
No, I wouldn't say so. Look, it all depends on results. At the end of the day, every Tottenham player, every Tottenham, coaching staff, every Tottenham fan are waking up this morning thinking we just beaten Arsenal 2-0. I was like quite comfortable. Yeah, of course they want to see their team go and dominate the game, create chance after chance, really get a dominant performance over Arsenal. But at the same time, Mourinho, if you look, I always kind of reflect on the documentary because it was kind of an insight into what it's about. And if you remember like the West Ham game where they were comfortably dominating and then West Ham came back into the game, he's trying to get rid of that now where he says, like, we say switched on and we do not concede. It really is a throwback to if you look at his first season with Chelsea, with that team, the way they used to win games 1-0, 2-0. It will certainly, of course, look, Tottenham fans will want to see better football, but whilst the team are winning, do you know what I mean? You're not going to complain. It's the top of the table, so it's going in the right direction.
Everyone talks of Liverpool, and Jurgen Klopp does, as these mentality monsters because of the pressing game. You look at that Tottenham performance yesterday, and it is a similar mentality, just in a totally different way. Incredible discipline. Is that all work on the training ground to ensure that the players are that rigid in their structure, that everybody knows their position all the time? And are you surprised how quickly he's been able to get them into that mentality, that they do seem fully bought in?
It's taken time from you look at when Mourinho has come in to probably he's probably been trying to implement that the whole time, and he's certainly seeing, the benefits of doing it now. It is fascinating, because if you look at the way Spurs played under Pochettino, like they were this open, expansive football. Now you see Harry Kane, like back in and around his defensive area, tackling people, blocking people, even, defending corners or free kicks. He's the one heading the ball. It's just, he really has built, something special there. And certainly the way it's going, it is. If I were a Spurs fan, I would be excited, because you look like you're finally getting that bit between your teeth where you're going to go and like win some silverware. And they're just turning out results anytime they play one of the big sides where you kind of think, no, they'll be, tested. They beat Man City, and then of course, like, they beat Arsenal. Yes, they aren't in great form, but they're still going and grinding out these results. So it does look really positive for Spurs, and I would be excited if I were a Spurs fan.
And they should be further clear at the top, is the thing. You look at, Everton first day of the season, they were beaten and they were pretty poor that day. But Newcastle, they were absolutely robbed at the end when the penalty that Eric Dyer is judged to have given away. And West Ham, they're 3-0 up with 8-9 minutes left. There's literally never been a comeback like it in the Premier League. This is a Spurs side that actually could have stretched clear at the top. Is there a different pressure now, do you think, that suddenly everyone is talking about them as contenders? Because they've been in this position a few times over the last 7-8 years, and that's where the mentality has struggled, that when they need to kick on, when you need to extend a 10-game unbeaten run to a 20-game unbeaten run, they haven't been able to do it.
Well, that is the big thing, Nathan, isn't it? Everyone's going to put those question marks over Spurs. But you have to just look, I suppose, at the manager, the one who's, leading the way or driving the car. I would back the man over the club in the sense of the success that Mourinho has had in his time in football. They've never had a manager of that caliber, and you could just see him making it Spurs against, the rest of the league. Kind of, that old. He loves the mind games. He loves being involved. Like, you've seen the stuff there with Guardiola after the Man City game. He just seems to have that bit between his teeth of. Like, I remember when he first came to Chelsea, he was energetic, all this time, the special one malarkey. He seems to be back to his best, Mourinho. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue on. Like you said, though, that is the big challenge they're going to face. Can they continue to go on these winning streaks and turn, 10 games unbeaten to 20 games unbeaten? Because you can be sure, like, Man City this weekend, have won their second game in a row in the league for the first time this season, which you think, like, God, for the team that should be winning the title. So that they're coming back, and of course Liverpool are just going to continue to go the way they're going.
Yeah, isn't it the case though that this time Spurs have a better squad, a more balanced squad, depth almost everywhere, with the exception maybe of centre back. But even then, he's managed to turn Eric Dyer into a centre back.
Yeah, no, they do. And you look at it, like yesterday, he doesn't bring on like Bale or whatever. He's got a lot of options. Of course, they're trying to get him up to speed, but there's other players. It's not like I'm a big Spurs fan or whatever, but I do like what he's building, in the sense of, like, you look at some of the midfield players he's got, like, Lascelles and whatever. They don't want to be, as Nathan alluded to earlier, they don't want to be closing down fellas for 90 minutes, staying tight and compact in your shape, not being broken down. They want to go and get on the ball, make something happen, play good, open possession-based football. But he's got them all buying into the system, and it's not just the 1 to 11. It's when the lads come on as the substitutes, they're all buying into it as well. It's truly remarkable what he is doing with this team.
Mikel Arteta obviously came into Arsenal with a lot of expectation, having spent so much time working under Pep Guardiola, and watching Arsenal yesterday and how predictable they were. This after Arteta spoke last week about the amount of crosses Arsenal were putting in games, and how this was a real positive thing, that if they keep doing this, goals will have to come. Yesterday, they 32 crosses from open play and 12 corner kicks. They ended up making Alderweireld and Dyer look like one of the greatest centre-half pairings in the world. They just won every single header, and they never tried to change it. What was he doing?
I don't know. It's just, like, nobody knows what's going on in Arsenal. We don't know what the problem is. But they are crying out for a player like Mesut Ozil. I don't know what's gone on behind the scenes. I don't know. Is it something between Arteta or is it above Arteta? But I would love to see, and I guarantee you, Aubameyang, Lacazette would love to see Ozil in the team, because he is that type of player who can get on the half turn, who can pick a pass, who can see a pass, and then execute the pass itself. It's just, they just seem to, he's talking about crossing. When have we ever associated Arsenal as a crossing side? They've always played beautiful, attractive football. That's been the the key to Arsenal. And just at the moment, they just look like they have no plan. It's almost the players are kind of going out waiting for something to happen, and then before they know it, they're 1-0 down or 2-0 down, and the game's passing them by, and it's over.
Is this it for Arsenal and Arteta? Can this team, can he fix something in this team at the moment?
He's going to have to, isn't he? That's the big challenge he has. Look at the start. I think it went well for them, and they ended up winning the FA Cup, and now they're kind of come unstuck now, and their results aren't going their way. But now this will be a test of his character as a manager. We will see what Mikel Arteta is like. He's got to find a way. Like, their chance creation is low. Like we're talking, like Nathan's bringing up there, they're crossing the ball a lot. You don't put that with Arsenal. We're not used to seeing them that way. So he's got to find a way to get the best out of those players, because at the moment they're like Aubameyang, he's not scoring goals. He looks disinterested, in my opinion. So they need to do something and find a way, to get them back winning football matches. Let's
move on to Liverpool, because Wolves had a slow enough start to the season and then had got things back on track and looked like they were back to being the Wolves of last season, who were pushing hard for a European place. And then they just got ripped apart by Liverpool last night, where Liverpool picked their front three that we're used to seeing. Jota's on the bench, and it kind of feels like at the moment that Liverpool are at the level that they were at 18 months ago when they were streaking away with the league. It's just that the league is better this season.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that Liverpool are probably, I don't think they're as good as they were 18 months ago or whatever. I don't think they're a million miles off it, mind. Of course, look, with COVID, no fans, the injuries that Liverpool have picked up and all that, of course, not going to be at the level. I still think, looking at the game last night and watching it, those, even not small minority of fans, that, the 2,000 that were in the ground, would have given those players a massive lift. And Wolves, we're kind of getting used to seeing what way, Wolves play, but I just felt Wolves conceded goals at the wrong times. That kind of, like, obviously Salah's first one is the mistake from Conor Cody, but Liverpool just get the goals at the right time, and it's just such a professional performance, like a kind of a performance of champions, where they scored at the right times and they just nullified any threats or attacks. Of course, Cliodhna had to make the odd save here and there, but they just scored at the right times, killed the game off, and then they just, they were in third gear. They were kind of almost in cruise control.
Is Mo Salah the most underappreciated player in the Premier League, even within Liverpool? You talk to Liverpool supporters, so often it's, Bobby Firmino's the link man. He's the first name of the team sheet. He's the one who keeps it all together. Or Sadio Mane, the energy he brings. Liverpool couldn't survive without it. And there's this sense, because Salah sometimes gives the ball away, that, of the three of them, he's the one almost the Klopp would be, maybe first in line if one of them was to go. Totally ignoring his insane goal-scoring record and just how bloody talented he is every time he plays.
It's certainly the argument for good versus evil. Like, I'm watching the game last night, and it's funny that you asked me, because I'm just watching and I'm looking at Salah and I'm thinking, the ball gets played into him. He's a lovely touch. He's holding someone off. He links up the play well. He goes again, and eventually we get somewhere where Liverpool creating a goal scoring opportunity. Then there's times that the ball goes into him. You're thinking, like, just get hold of it, and then he tries to twist and turn and beat a man, and he loses the ball, and you're just thinking, like, just keep hold of the ball. You end up getting so frustrated. Like, even there was a certain instance that jumps to my mind, was laid on Liverpool 4-0 up, and Salah's got the ball on the edge of the box. He comes in onto his left, and I think he can slide Jots in, or he can pass it across to someone else. But he chooses to shoot, and it's a bit like, he is so selfish. But it's that, like I said, that good versus evil, that he can be the one that decides the game for you or wins a match for you, but he's also going to frustrate the life out of you. And I think, yeah, he is underappreciated, because, like, as you said, you look at his goal scoring record, it's off the charts. Like, the games he scored goals in, it's just remarkable. But it does seem to be the question. A lot of Liverpool fans do say if they were to lose one of the three, it would be Salah, which then you think, like, of the goals to games return he's had, it's crazy to even think that. But I don't know, maybe I don't know. It's remarkable, because he's the one who scores all the big goals all the time. I know Sadio scores a lot as well, but it's always Salah.
In the conversations about whether or not the ball had crossed the line in the Man United West Ham game, perhaps a little bit of the conversation came away from what a screamer it was from Paul Pogba, and he reminded everybody just how amazing. He almost scored a screamer off the bench the previous night as well, which if it had gone in, I think might have changed the conversation about him a little bit. But irrespective of that, were Man United pretty lucky to win this game, or is that just who Manchester United are, a brilliant second half team at the moment?
It's just, as much as United fans are kicking off about Ollie and, you know, it's not great, it's not doing well, they're still turning out results. You know, like I watched the game, West Ham first half battered them. It was kind of one of them, you almost, if you were a Manchester United player, you'd get in the change room and the manager would go, look lads, that was awful, it can't get much, you know, can't get any worse, let's lift it, like. And they did, they came out second half, and then look, where the ball was gone out for a throw in or not, I'd probably say give the benefit of the doubt to, you know, Manchester United. I wouldn't say, of course, any West Ham fan will be moaning, but it's so hard to see and just move on. And then obviously the ball, Bruno pulls the ball back to Pogba, and you think like he's got to be 27, 28 yards out, and it's just what a finish. And that's the most frustrating thing. We could sit here and argue about Pogba all day. The boy is exceptionally talented. It's just something's not right upstairs, and if he sorts that out, then he can be the best midfielder in the world, bar none. I don't think anyone, of course, you would say De Bruyne. Are they the exact same type midfielder? But no. But if Pogba really sorts himself out, then he can be exceptional. And we've just seen glimpses of it in games, whereas you need to see it for 90 minutes consistently.
In terms of whether or not Solskjaer is the architect of everything that's happening, or is he an onlooker? How much credit does he get for what's going on at the moment?
Well, he's the manager. You have to give him the credit, don't you? It's not as if the lads are going out there and doing it themselves. You know, he's the one driving them on. So you have to give him credit. When do players? I don't think like he's lost the players. That the players are doing it for themselves, and you know they're not doing it for him. I definitely think he's the one giving the instructions, giving the orders, and they seem to be responding to him. Yes, not be at all every game, but. Certainly, you know, the other day at half-time, he's obviously had a few words to say. They've come out and, you know, they've gone on, they've won the game comfortably, and he made changes at the right times, bringing on Rashford and Bruno at half-time. And then, of course, he brings, you know, Matt on later on, who are then all involved in, you know, the goals. So you've got to give him credit where it's deserved.
Yeah, fair enough. David, good stuff this morning. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
David Meyler giving us some thoughts this morning at 8:03 here on OTBAM. Pack show still to come. We're going to be talking the Cork-Galway fallout in the women's football with Aisling O'Reilly. We're going to hear from Andy Moran. We'll speak with Alan Quinlan. Up next, it's Kieran Donaghy. Stay tuned.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB.
In 1927, Cavan Coolidge was President of the United States, and it was the last time Dublin beat Cork in the All-Ireland Hurling Championship. They have met in the championship on 15 occasions, with Cork victorious 12 times, Dublin twice and just a single draw. History, John, would tell us this will be a victory for the Leesiders. However, hurling is usually a game that takes on a life of its own.
OTB live commentary. Never miss the action right here on OTB Sports Radio.
Follow the leader, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. The world's best-selling plug-in hybrid is now available with 0% finance and a free home charge point worth €800. Leading the charge in plug-in hybrid technology, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Book a test drive at your local dealer today. Mitsubishi, drive your ambition. Terms and conditions apply. See MitsubishiMotors.ie. Lending criteria applies. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, your Mo supported our frontline workers this Movember.
The front page of the Star, killing him softly. Did you get it, Nathan? Did you get it?
Hey.
Tip-top by Rampant O'Connor as he scores 4-9 to smash championship record. So it's actually a wraparound front cover.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the one misstruck shot that Cillian O'Connor had, and oh look, it's his brother palming it to the back of the net just before half-time to, I'm not going to lie, to allow us all to watch some Christmas movies and not have to watch the second half. It was like...
I knew Mayo were good. I didn't think they were deserving of a full wraparound cover for an All-Ireland semi-final win.
Well,
geez, there'll be a 25-page pullout if they win it.
Well, they understand. They understand in the Star how to get some good sales going. So Simply the West from O'Connor, and that's a picture of one of his 4 goals. And then Breffney's Capital Punishment is the other one. It's the goal that was scored by Robbie McDade, man of the match, Brian Fenton, with one of the all-time great performances, and like he doesn't get any credit for it anymore. Somebody last week, I don't know who it was like, oh, maybe it was Kieran, was like, oh, Brian Fenton's not going to go his entire career without losing a game. Actually, you know what? I wonder what the odds are now. Would you? You might. I'll cup a feel. So David McMillan scored the hat-trick. Giovagnoli kissing the FAI Cup. Is he going to stay? They can't realistically let him continue to be the manager if he can't get access for European games to the dressing room.
They've a bit to go, I think, before they need to worry about European games again next summer. But they're bringing Jim Magilton in, it seems, as the director of football. Is he there at the start? It's hard to see. Magilton gets in, looks around, has plenty of connections in the game. Yeah, I can't see him being there by the time the European football comes around next summer.
The England rugby team celebrating the cup that they won for that tournament that was just on. Eddie Jones fires back at disrespectful critics. The England rugby fans, there was 2,000 fans at the game. There was a bit of booing going on with all the kicking that they were doing. I'll run you through the rest of the papers in just a little while. Kieran Donaghy, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Ger. How are you?
Was it you, just off the top of my head, somebody last week was like, look, Brian Fenton's not going to go his entire career without losing a championship match. There's a good chance he might now. There's like, it's better than even chance, I'd say, that he might.
I'd say the odds be maybe more than evens, Ger, but yeah, it's look, he hasn't lost yet in a way, and if he keeps going the way he's going and leading them the way he is around the middle of the field and being as defensively strong as he is and kicking in 4 or 5 points every game and causing havoc running through on goal, he certainly makes them hard to beat, and he's certainly somebody that Mayo need to obviously place massive emphasis going into the final. Yeah,
well, look, we'll talk about the state of the game in a moment, but I started the show by getting Nathan a little bit excited by just asking him how he feels, and then he couldn't help but talk himself into, do you know what, we have a chance.
Yeah, look, you know, Mayo have obviously the more to work on in the next 2 weeks. I think Dublin are quite sure of their game plan and quite sure of everything they're about. I think James Horan has done a fantastic job to get this Mayo team into this position this year. You know, if you just bring yourself back to your television screen or being in Croke Park last August and you know the shell shock of 8 minutes into that second half, and Dublin come out and put 2-4, 2-5 up on the board, and you just look at the weary legs of the Mayo team, and you know, certainly there was a narrative around that they could be gone, and you know, COVID has helped them. They've had massive time off. They've done massive work in the gym. A lot of their key guys are in frightening shape. Aidan O'Shea is, I would say, in the shape of his life. So too Cillian O'Connor. Tommy Conroy has obviously brought an awful lot. Diarmuid O'Connor is kind of going very well, being solid, but you know, there's more in him coming into a big final. And they're in a good place. They got COVID was good for their setup, having the county championship on fully before Mayo kicked into gear. I'm sure James Moran was around those grounds, and you know, looking in at these youngsters, kind of going, okay, you know, maybe he might have tried to go one more year with the older brigade, and I think definitely coming out of county grounds, he would have been excited at stages last year, and threw them into that Galway game, and they were devastating in that game. So they still have work to do, obviously. As I said, the kickouts is a major worry for me because Dublin are so strong on opposition kickouts these days. So, you know, that's one area they'll have to get right. But, you know, Cillian O'Connor scoring 4-9, he obviously won't get that space and that time the next day, but you know, just that's a frightening stat for a player to score 4-9 in an All-Ireland semi-final. And I tell you one thing, Conor Sweeney had 1-9 at the other end, and you know, if he slots his goal chance in the first half, and if Tipperary play him through when he's wide open standing at the back post waiting to just catch it, drop it onto his foot into an open goal. He would have had 4-9 as well. So frightening performances from those two lads. And they look, it's a build-up, and it's a game where we know Mayo, and probably why Nathan is so enthusiastic is because of what Mayo have brought to the occasion more often than not. And I know last year that they had that collapse in the second half, but you know, they went in 2 points up at half time, and it looked like to be going to plan, and Dublin came out and sucker punched them, and the Hill erupted and Croke Park erupted, and you know, 5 minutes later the game was over.
Look, we'll obviously preview the game in the specifics of matchups and shape and kick-out strategy, and try and learn some of the lessons from the two hammerings at the weekend, essentially, that we were very concerned about the two hammerings coming into it, that there was a possibility that both Mayo and Dublin would blow out their semi-final opponents. After the Cavan game, obviously, the narrative nationally became something needs to be done about Dublin. What are we going to do? And that's everything from defund the Dubs to give everybody else millions to change the competition structures or split the Dubs. What are we going to do? Should we split the Dubs?
No, I don't think so now. I think that if the GA are going to do nothing to reverse the trend, maybe in 10, 15 years, they'll have to be split. But I don't think we need to go there. I think we need to look at, you know, this Dublin team. I refuse to kind of say that money has brought these players to this point in this success. I think it's helped. If you look at, you know, the stuff that Nathan was talking about earlier on, they've got a fantastic setup. They've no mileage. They're able to spend all their money, you know, in giving the team the best possible chance to go out and perform. That doesn't mean that it gets them over the line. It as I said, look, it helps with their backroom team. They've got a full-time sports psychologist. They've got a full-time lifestyle coach. They've got, you know, I went down the back of O'Moore Park when they were playing Westmeath. There was 6 guys on laptops down there. They've television screens in the dressing room at half time. They've uploaded clips to go through where they're struggling. You know, just other counties just don't have the facilities or the finance to put them procedures in place. But, you know, these guys, for what they've done, the pitch, they've won every tight game they've had to win, this Dublin team, the Kerry team that I was on, and the Mayo team that Nathan is hoping can do it in 2 weeks' time. You know, they pushed him right to the pin of their collar as well, but Dublin always found a way in those tight games, and you know, splitting them from me is only if we don't do anything else. I think there's other stuff that we can do in the meantime. We obviously have to reverse the huge funding issue that is a factor. We obviously have to look at possibly pooling all the sponsorships from every county board into one big pot and try and divvy it out fairly. And if the likes of AIG are putting in more money than anybody else, well, maybe they have to go on the backs of some of the jerseys if their pot is going into all these teams. But, you know, we do have to look at trying to... That's an immediate thing that they could do to one, give every chance to every team to have a full-time sports. I know teams that had to choose between GPS and other factors, and having to pick one or the other because
that's all the budget's for. Yeah. Can I make the case that actually the money does matter in the final minutes of the games? That actually that big backroom team and those screens in the dressing room at half time and the GPS data analysis actually gives Dublin an edge in closing out games because they're making better decisions on the basis of better information. So better inputs equals better outputs. It's any very basic business strategy in my view, and that actually having had a full-time lifestyle coach means that you are a little bit fitter. It means that you are capable of making better decisions under pressure, and that is one of the things that would separate them from Mayo in those tight games, that the finances do have an impact, and you do see that on the pitch. It doesn't diminish the players making the right decisions or their achievements, but it's just easier for those players to make those decisions than it is for players from other teams because they've got better support systems.
Look, it's a possible relative point, Ger, but I go back to the you know the Kilkenny team of the Kerry team of the 80s, the Kilkenny team of the 2000s. Manchester United are over there, Arsenal are over there now with all the money and all the backroom teams and all the sports psychologists and all but there's no stability there, Ger. And Dublin have created fantastic stability around their CEO, John Costello, has put fantastic foundations in place. Their under-21 manager for 4 or 5 years was Jim Gavin. He slotted in and took the senior job. Desi Farrell took the under-21 job for 6 years and then came in and took the senior job. So they have fantastic stability and ideas, and then they've huge internal leadership of the likes of Stephen Cluxton and these great leaders that they have in that dressing room. So, money doesn't fix everything and doesn't win you trophies, as we well know, or else, the Premiership would be where United or Arsenal would be in a better position over the last number of years. But it helps, of course, it helps. But I don't. In them closing moments, it's down to the preparation. If you see the likes of the Stephen Cluxton coming out, marking Tommy Walsh late on in the game last year, that has nothing to do with anything but coaching, scenario-based training, looking at every possible outcome that could present itself in a game and preparing properly for it. When he conceded that goal against Killian Spillane last year, it was him that was in 2.5 hours early before training. Yes, he had a guy with a laptop and a goalkeeping coach, but a lot of the top teams would have it, but then a lot of teams don't have that. So when I'm talking about, trying to pool sponsorship or trying to reverse the funding immediately to try and help all these other counties to put these structures in place, that they have the chance that when their goalie concedes 3 or 4, and if he wants to take himself to the next level and help improve his team and have that outlook on it, that maybe he gets to training an hour early. But you're back to the scenario of that if he's travelling down from college and it takes 3 hours to drive down and he can't get there in time because of his studies, etc. Whereas that's the obvious, advantage the Dubs have where they don't have that cost of fellas driving the train. You heard Kevin McStay last night talk about, half his budget's gone and bringing guys down with mileage and trying to feed them and trying to get them back home. And just that time, I suppose, in the car is another obvious issue that we had in Kerry as well, with fellas driving from some rural parts in Kerry 2 hours up to training. But, this Dublin team, splitting them just doesn't sit well with me right now. If we do nothing and just hope the problem goes away and hope that this generational teams just packs up and goes away, that's not going to happen now with where they are, with the stability they have, with the processes they've put in, with the coaching structures that they have, with the backroom support. They're not going away. You see, they're in the 20s, they're in the final in 2 weeks as well, so they're not going anywhere. But it shouldn't be their issue. They don't have to go anywhere. They have to stay at the top because that's where they want to stay. But how do we figure out how to give every chance the best possible, every team the best possible chance to promote their brand in the right way? To get the best product out in the pitch and to put all the support structures around the group to help them try and be successful. It's not going to be overnight, and teams aren't just going to come along and win all Ireland when they get the money. That's obvious. But how do we help coaches? How do we help put more coaches around the schools? How do we help promote the game better in the county? How do we help get more sponsors on board? But that pooling of sponsorship, Ger, I've heard you talk about it before. I think that's something that immediately something that needs to be looked at, because some teams are barely struggling to get 20,000 off a sponsor.
Yeah, well, let me just briefly explain. So it's an idea completely ripped off the NFL, in that apart from the Dallas Cowboys, every single jersey that gets sold, irrespective of what team you're from, you get a cut of it. The other 31 teams share equally. So if Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay sells 6 million jerseys, the Cleveland Browns get an equal cut of those jerseys than Tampa Bay. And it's just a way of sharing the wealth and making sure that everybody gets the same. So every time somebody buys a beanie hat that's New Era, that New Era deal is split 31 ways. You could easily do that so that... Well,
O'Neill's could look at doing that, and besides kind of riding the wave of the Dublin machine and sponsoring them, and every other county board broke from trying to buy gear for all their teams. There's definitely something in that. But I just think it gives it's something that can happen quickly, but the GAA have to also look at the output and the spending that's going into Dublin and the thing that they did. Sean Kelly brought in for Dublin in 2003. There was a worry in the city, and possibly rightfully so, that football was going to be left behind the rugby and soccer inside in the areas. When I was going up there, it was all Liverpool jerseys and Chelsea jerseys. But for the last number of years, whenever I'm driving around Dublin, it's hoodies, tracksuits, jerseys, training tops. It's all Dublin. That's all you see around the place. And this current bunch of Dublin players have inspired this generation of youth in the city. And you've all the coaches going into the schools. You've the unbelievable setup in all the clubs. You've 31 under 10 teams in some clubs, and structure set up for them for tournaments and all this. So they're in a really good place now. Going around to the schools, is Pat Gilroy was saying last night, is a lot of that is just to introduce football to the kids. And I would say at this stage, it's pretty well introduced to them now, because their team is completely dominant, and their team is putting on a show every week and doing it the right way on the pitch. So, maybe, there's likes of lesser counties around the place that maybe the kids are sick of going to games where their bunch of boys get hammered in a qualifier, and that's the end of the year, and there's no real build-up, or there's no...
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that? Because I think that, like, for so many teams and so many players, that the desire to go the extra mile. When you were training for the last season, what do you think of that, Joe Brody? That season when you were doing that training, if you didn't think you had a chance of winning, would you have gone the extra mile? I'm not sure. I think that, like, if you weren't from Kerry, if you'd been in a county that was routinely beaten first day out in Munster or Leinster, and then beaten in the second qualifier or the first qualifier, would you have been as absolutely gee-eyed to become the footballer that you became that year?
Yeah, possibly not. Possibly not. But it's a good point, and that's why I think and we spoke about it with Jim McGuinness last week. Having that second tier competition, and we see it in Kerry in junior championship, intermediate championship, senior championship. We see it on we see the club story when teams get all the way to Croker and win that trophy. There isn't huge amount of numbers in the crowd. There isn't 40,000 in Croke Park for these games, but it's an All-Ireland, and it's recognised as an All-Ireland, and the biggest thing, whatever they do with this Tailteann Cup, it has to get TV exposure. It has to be double headers. It has to be something that maybe it's something like that the bottom when it gets into the kind of playoff scenario or knockout scenario, that the lower ranked divisional team gets the home draw, where you have bigger teams going to smaller venues, bringing the big teams down around the country to smaller venues and really trying to promote the game in those areas and obviously give their team a better chance of letting the grass grow a foot and a half and tightening in the pitch and doing whatever they can do to help themselves try and get through to the next knockout phase, but to give them a genuine chances to win things. And yes, they can go win their provincial championship, whether that be at the end of the league or the start of the league, whatever way they want to work that, but give them reasonable chances that they can go to win trophies and have realistic chances of winning their division in their league, having a crack off of a provincial championship. And if all else fails and they get knocked out, that they can go and try and build on something and try and win something. But they have to have the guarantee that it's not going to be a Tommy Murphy, that it's going to get more recognition from the Joe McDonagh. And I think the Joe McDonagh is thrown at them, but possibly the Joe McDonagh isn't getting enough. But hurling is such a kind of, it's played in it's played all around Ireland, but like it's really predominant in a number of counties and not so in a lot of others. Whereas football is everywhere, really prominent in every county, probably maybe bar Kilkenny. So that I don't think that happens, and there's huge interest in all those counties in the game, but they have to get the promise of big days, whether it's provincial grounds or their own ground, but big crowds, TV coverage for their sponsors to get on board, you know, and then kids are coming to these games and they're seeing their team play and not get hammered and be a damp squib and be out of the championship, but almost, could they win a last 16 game? Could they win a last 8 game? Could they get a bit of momentum to build on for the year previous? Obviously, the winner of the Tailteann Cup goes straight into the Sam Maguire next year. All these things to try and really motivate these players, as you rightly say, to go the extra mile, to get the training a bit earlier. Because I query that as well, how you know, but, you know, even talking to Paul Galvin and his time in Wexford, like he said, his guys gave him an awful lot, huge amount of effort and commitment to training. And you know, so I don't know what their idea is. It's fine for you to say that about me, and it's fine for me to possibly agree with you, but I don't know the inner beliefs of teams around the county, around the country, and what they see as success, and maybe they are going to the pits to get their team out of Division 4 or Division 3 or whatever. But I think it's summertime football, Ger. It's getting into Croke Park for a final, maybe play the Tailteann Cup games on Friday night where they're on TV. We'd all be at home on Friday night. We'd all probably watch it, and we'd all watch them games on TV because they're all good games between, and build the stars around that, and get a Lidl or an AIB in to really promote that. I think that's the worry they have, and they have a right to feel that way. They've seen how the Tommy Murphy was thrown together and not given the publicity it deserves, and then probably looking at the Joe McDonagh and saying similar. So they'll have to get some guarantees from the TV companies, from the GEA that this is going to be promoted in the right way.
All right, look, maybe we should talk a little bit about the actual games themselves then. Was there anything that Cavan did that worked against Dublin on Saturday night, Kieran?
I think I think Cavan did an awful lot right, Ger. I think they did well. I think they represented Ulster well. They went for it. They went for it from the get-go in the throw-in. They attacked the game. But just that, you know, it's been a long time since they've been in Croke Park, and it's been a long time since they've been in Croke Park against a Dublin side. And the pitch is so big. They're so fast and strong that, you know, it is a kind of an eye-opener, because if you looked at what Cavan did to teams in the second halves, predominantly of all their game, they squeezed the life out of teams. They turned teams over. They had massive comebacks, huge momentum periods in it. You can't get momentum against Dublin, Ger, because they're too smart and they're too good. The last team to probably get a bit of momentum was in 2016 when we put a full press on them and got the 2 goals. I wish half-time never came that day, because we were really starting to put the squeeze on them. But again, half-time they went in, their analysis had what was going on. They probably had the press up on the big screen. You know, how do we fix this? What are the issues around it? And come out and deal with it. And deal with it they did. And they did it reversed around in the space of 10 minutes. So, you know, they are very hard to get momentum against. That's what Mayo will find hard in 2 weeks, because they're just so economic on all their kickouts. You know, Cluxton was 17 from 19 again the last day. Just getting the ball up the pitch and you know, then scoring and right decision making is just so good by them. You know, they just don't take bad decisions.
Pre-match,
they all know.
Sorry, just on that point, pre-match and the kickouts in particular, Peter Canavan did a pick your poison piece of analysis where they go long, they score a goal, they go short, they score a goal against Meath. At least from Mayo's perspective, they've been in big games against Dublin. They will know this, so they won't have this is new shock that the majority of the players won't have. This is new shock, and the new kids obviously will do. But they're very, very athletic, those new young players coming in. So you would expect that some of them will be able to manage. And the plan will be to have a variance, so it won't be one or the other from Mayo's perspective. So you would is that something that we know that Mayo will be able to do that will be different from anything Dublin have faced this year, at least? Yeah, look, like Mayo have the best tackling, you know, forward lineup outside of Dublin, and the best strategy around how they're trying to get the ball back. We saw it yesterday. They were in the full press for most of the game. They don't sit back. They don't fall back off you. Maybe they'll throw different things at Dublin. Maybe they might do that for a period of 6 or 7 minutes in the final to see how it's going. But
predominantly they will be up, they will be tackling, they will be moving you side to side. I think they'll put some type of a press on from frees at stages to try and get Stephen Cluxton not to be 17 from 19, to make him go long, but go long that where you've lots of bodies up there, and that you're trying to gamble on it. They leave it 2-on-2 inside, which would be a worry with the calibre that Dublin will have inside there. But you know, they're doing it the right way. They know what they're about. They're pressing up. Their defenders playing in the back two are playing from in front. Very like Dublin do it as well. You know, and Dublin are up in that press. You see Mick Fitzsimons, they showed a clip of him in the Sunday game. You know, he's playing 7 or 8 yards in front of his man because he knows the ball is so far away that it can't be kicked in over his head. And plus he's got Cluxton razor sharp on his toes behind him, that if they do go long over his head, that he's out in it. So the way both teams are set up is going to make for that middle, the middle of the pitch, that 16, 17, 18 players in the middle of the pitch. There's going to be a huge lack of space.
Yeah.
There's going to be a huge amount of bodies. Dublin will be pushing you down the line. Mayo will be trying to use the Owen McLaughlins and the Paddy Durkins to break out through it. But that middle will be fascinating, and who handles the ball in there better, who makes the better decisions in there, and who doesn't turn it over as much has a huge bearing on the game. But yes, they will have to do their homework, and they will have to try and upset Cluxton and that's not easy, and try and push up and make it really hard for them. But my fear is what Dublin are going to do on the other side to David Clark, and you know, I think if Mayo, I said last night on Sky that Mayo will have to go really short in the final or really long. I take the middle one out of it. I think the middle one got him in huge trouble against the Tipperary side that let's call a spade, like, you know, ran through them yesterday. And you could say the boys maybe switched off and subs were on, but you don't see them excuses from Dublin. They don't allow that to happen. They don't allow that situation to develop. And, you know,
I think 3 goals.
No, I think David Clark is going to put the ball down, and I think he's going to tap it out short, or he's going to go as long as he can. And the balance that Mayo will have to get is that they have some type of understanding that when he's going long, so that when he does go long, that they can really crowd, you know, that middle third with his... Yeah, and even more, Ger, even more, try and get +2 in underneath it, or have a call that he's going right or left. So fellas know early enough to get out to this area and really try and win the ball in the middle of the field with Dublin up in the press, and then try and get it into your Aidan O'Shea and Cillian O'Connor as quick as possible.
You mentioned those two, right? We're nearly out of time here. The last point that I want to make from a Mayo perspective, the reason why I think Nathan should be excited is that this is the first time that Mayo have had everybody fit and playing well. I don't remember Cillian O'Connor not having a shoulder injury or coming back from a leg injury. I don't remember Diarmuid O'Connor being fully fit and like not being subbed in or being an injury doubt before the game and then mysteriously appearing and then disappearing after half an hour. I don't remember Aidan O'Shea being fit at the same time, and I don't remember their bench being full of cavalry who you can trust to come on for 15, 20 minutes and think, okay, they're actually going to have a legitimate impact on the quality of this game. Granted, Lee Keegan is not at footballer the level that he was at, and some of the players who are out of the team will be a miss, but for the first time they're fully fit. They're 6-point underdogs at the moment. They will believe that they have a chance.
Oh, they will absolutely, and and they've got an excellent backroom team, and what Horan has done by bringing in McDonald, and you know, I could see him talking to guys in the warm up yesterday in different drills that they were doing, and he was trying to change the movement at times, making runs for the ball, and you know, they have a lot going for them, okay? They're dynamic across their half-forward line. They're extremely fit, and they're a great bunch of tacklers in their half-forward line. So, look, you have a lot of bases covered there. Inside, the addition of Tommy Conroy has been absolutely huge. He's a really, really good player, dynamic player, wants to take you on every time he gets it, is not overly selfish, makes the right decision for the team. Aidan O'Shea, as I said, and Cillian O'Connor, I think are in the best shape they ever have been. I think Aidan played the position well yesterday by being inside and getting a few in over the top, and he was linking out in front and taking a huge amount of pressure off of the other two and being that focal ball winner that I believe he's destined to be. And if he is to bring Sam back to Mayo, he'll have to play that role more as he can the next day. Obviously, if they're getting, you know, dominated on kickouts or in the middle of the field, yes, he has to come out and play that role too. But I don't want him to get caught between, you know, copying 2 roles the next day and end up not really doing either. I think him inside is a really good place for them to start, because he's so Dublin won't be able to kind of drop off like they do on Merchant and different players dropping in the last day, because Mayo are so powerful in that middle 8 and so quick that they'll break through, and then that guy has to come out. Then maybe you pop a little hand pass into Aidan O'Shea in the D and run off him. You saw how good his hands were for Cillian O'Connor's second goal yesterday. So they have an awful lot going for them, right? Matty Ruan is playing really well and has real good legs in the middle of the field, and probably will have to go and nullify Fenton, and that will have to be his main job. Maybe he mightn't be able to get through for the 2 or 3 goal chances he had yesterday. Maybe he just really focuses down on Fenton. And then, Dublin's backline don't get enough credit, and that's going to be the fascinating battle for me. The John Small, James McCarthy, Fitzsimons, Davy Byrne, Owen Merchant. They don't get enough credit, but yeah, they're really good. And not only are they really good man to man, but they're really good. They're really good about knowing what their roles are. They're really good about knowing the system, who's dropping, what the guy dropping is doing, what angles he is cutting out. Fascinating to look at them, and I do a good bit of watching them from behind the goals. Fascinating to look at how they communicate and talk around that. And then obviously, look, you've Cluxton leading the whole charge. And that's going to be the huge point of can this Mayo forward line that I think is probably their best. As you say, they're all in really good shape right now, and they're all moving really well. And if they can go toe to toe with that back 6 for Dublin and cause them problems, that'll be a big, huge psychological lift for Mayo on the day. Yeah, if they're out there on the day and they've been going really well all year, and all of a sudden they can't get away from the Fitzsimons and the Davy Byrnes, and they can't break past the +1 dropping system that Dublin have, that's when doubt starts to possibly creep in, Ger. But they do have reason to be very hopeful. But it's still Dublin's to lose. Mayo have to have nearly what Kerry got the first day last year. Maybe someone sent off, someone black carded early. Have a lead going into the dying moments, and they have to try and hope that Dublin have that kind of slightly off day where they don't really perform, even though Kerry did a lot in the first game with their press. Yeah, that's what Kerry people most looked at after that first game. Jesus, yeah, that press is great. We got caught for the goal, but hopefully they'll go back and they'll rectify it in video, and they'll say, okay, when the forwards break out to the wings, hold the middle and don't concede a goal if they get over the top of you. If they get one over to Con, don't concede a goal. Let them chip their point, because they get so many scores anyway. But unfortunately for Kerry in the replay, we saw no press for the game. We saw Dublin having every kick out, and if Dublin have every kick out and have all their own possessions, game over. You're going to need to score 129, 130 to beat them, because they're just so efficient up front. So what you have to make them do is not get all of their own possession from their own kickouts. Yeah.
All right, look, we've got plenty of time to get into the nitty-gritty of that, and hopefully it'll be a drama-free intervening period, and everybody will arrive fit and well on the day. Kieran, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks guys.
Kieran Donaghy giving us his thoughts there. It is 8:38 this morning. I'm going to give you an opportunity to enter our Mystery Voice competition. Great prizes to give away all this week, courtesy of our friends at Vodafone. It's the run into Christmas to help celebrate an unusual festive season and to stay closer to the team of us. Vodafone want to fill your Christmas stocking every morning this week with a selection of great gifts to give away. This morning you can win an Irish rugby jersey, a signed copy of Rob Kearney's new book, No Hiding, and a set of wireless sports headphones. To get your name in the hat, tell us who's today's Mystery Voice.
You could see that it was going to blow up, and it couldn't have been a senior players meeting actually, because David Wallace was in it.
To enter, send your guess to WhatsApp 087 9 180 180, and we'll reveal the answer and the winner before we leave you at 10 a.m. this morning. If you don't win today, tune in again tomorrow for more chances to win. It's all thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. Now, we're going to hear from the Galway football boss, Tim Rabbitt, to chat about the fixture chaos in the All-Ireland Women's semi-final yesterday. They ended up being beaten by Cork in Croke Park, even though the game had originally been fixed for Parnell Park. We'll talk to you about the details on that in just a couple of minutes' time. But first, let's play you a bit of this. It is Andy Moran in conversation with John Duggan yesterday for OTB. He was at the Mayo Tip game.
It was a strange game. We conceded a lot of Mayo conceded a lot of goal chances, but would have been very happy with the return of what they scored, and the performance of Cillian O'Connor at one end in scoring 4-9, which is a championship record, and the performance of David Clark at the other end gives us a perspective on, I suppose, the positives of what Mayo did today. In Tipperary, I think there's no shame in what they've done. They've won a brilliant Munster title for themselves, and they came here today, and they definitely, the old saying is dying with their boots on. They definitely died with their boots on. They kept coming, and I think they created 8, 9, maybe possibly 10 goal chances throughout the course of the 72 minutes that was played there today.
Early on, we had a situation where Michael Quinlan and Conor Sweeney missing goal chances, but Cillian O'Connor going down the other end settled Mayo with that first goal.
Yeah, it was funny the way it worked. Sweeney misses the first goal chance, massive chance, catches it brilliantly. Quinlan puts him a crossfield ball, he spins, hits with his left foot. Clark makes a great save, go down to the other end of the field. Cillian O'Connor hits a goal, which 6-point swing initially right at the start of the game. Tipperary's confidence is down, but then like an awful lot of Mayo scores came from them turnovers. The first one, Aidan O'Shea turns the ball over, Cillian O'Connor gets it. Second one, Owen McLaughlin turns the ball over, Cillian O'Connor gets it. And then for Cillian's hat-trick goal there, the third goal, Casey tries to play the ball across the goal, Cillian intercepts, and all of a sudden it's his third goal. All came from turnovers from Tipperary. I would say not being used to that physical contact that they got from Mayo today, and that was the real telling point in that kind of period of play.
In the end, he would score 4-9, Cillian O'Connor. You were forward yourself, Andy. You've soldiered for many years with him. Is he in the zone? Do you know when you see a player like that, just on everything, especially that intercept at the end of the first half, that this guy is almost, he's got a clock on his head and he knows where the ball is before he has it in his hands?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. I think we've seen it against Leitrim right from the first game. He was top scorer, Roscommon, he was excellent again. Galway a bit quieter, but done well, still got his scores, and then today he was just sensational. I think that's a lovely way to say it. He knows where the ball is going to be before. He also has got a little flying machine in beside him, and Tommy Conroy, who makes them initial runs, which allows Cillian to stay that bit closer to the goal, which is brilliant. Again, they put Shaughnessy on him today. Listen, it didn't work out for them, but Cillian is going to demand attention in the final, but he seems to be in great form.
Yeah, well, you talk about Tommy Conroy there, who was very impressive, and Matthew Rowan has come into the team, and you got new defenders as well. James Horan seems to have a nice blend of youth and experience. Aidan O'Shea still leading the line with Cillian, but there's a good blend there.
Yeah, I think Chris Barrett and David Clark and Lee Egan at the back. Then you have Paddy Durkin and Stephen Cohen, who've played over 50 games for Mayo apiece. Matty in the middle has a bit of experience. It's his second year, but then up front, then the experience comes. I thought today Kevin McLaughlin was excellent at wing forward. Ryan O'Donoghue plays well, who's a new player, but then the other side, more experienced. Diarmid plays well there for 40 minutes as well. And then Cillian, we know what he did inside. And Aidan, what he does is just links it together. Mayo try to put on that high press, try to really squeeze the defenders on the Tipperary team and the opposition team. And Aidan is a really good tackler. He turns the ball over constantly and it just allows the likes of Tommy Conroy and Cillian to exploit that.
Tipperary, they'll be disappointed. It didn't go their way. They conceded 5 goals. But when they look back on this year, when they're allowed to celebrate, when life returns to normal with their fans, they'll be very proud of what they've done.
Yeah, and I think from the goal chance they created today, they will take a tiny bit of heart out of that. They'll say, OK, we need to tighten it up at the back, but look what we can do the other side against a seasoned Division 1 team. Yes, got relegated this year in Mayo, but a seasoned Division 1 team, one of the best teams over the past decade around the place. And Tipperary can come in, create 8-9 goal chances. Going back to the Munster final, I think when Cavan and Tipperary look back on this year, they won't be remembering last night against Dublin. They won't be remembering today against Mayo. They'll be remembering Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and they'll be remembering against Donegal up in Armagh. Just 2 sensational days that we were lucky enough to witness ourselves, and it's I think that's going to be their big memory from 2020. And like if they can build and they can develop, they now see the standard they need to get to. Now they can kind of move on to that, the next phase.
It is quite scary how good Dublin are at the moment, going for the 6 in a row.
Yeah, they've been that way for quite a while. The difference is the teams come and they really have a go at them, and then they need to go back and they need to build again. So Mayo now are in the building phase, but now need to play Dublin, who have stayed at that constant, aggressive performance level. They've lost managers between Gilroy and Gavin now onto Desi Farrell. They've lost players like Rory O'Carroll, Ger Brennan, the Brogans, Connolly, Jack McCaffrey. Michael Darragh Macaulay is in Togan at the minute. Like they've just this wealth of talent, and they seem to be still going on this constant. Is it a big battle for Mayo? Yes. Do you want to be there to give it a go and maybe be that team that turns them over? 100%. This Mayo team are going to love the next 2 weeks of training. They're going to go at it as hard as they can. if my head is talking, should Dublin have enough? Of course they should. My heart is telling me it's a Mayo team that definitely have a chance, and you'll just have to, I think, wait and see, give Dublin all the respect they need and go out and play the game, and hopefully your star player, like what Killian did today, is able to produce the same level of performance.
Andy Moran in conversation with John Duggan after the game yesterday. Now, also, before that game happened, there was another game at Croke Park where Cork booked their place in the women's final against Dublin. However, it was a game that was overshadowed by the scheduling, the fact that it was even in Croke Park in many respects. And I'm delighted to say that the manager of the Galway team who played in the game yesterday, Tim Rabbit, is with us to talk to us about what happened. Tim, good morning to you.
Morning.
It's fair to say that this was not ideal preparations from your perspective. Even before yesterday, there had been the mini controversy that brewed during the week about the game, which was originally supposed to be scheduled for the Gaelic grounds. Can you take us back to when that happened and then bring us up to yesterday, just so everybody gets a complete picture of how the planning for this ultimately ended up affecting you guys?
Yeah, well, the game was fixed for the Gaelic grounds first, which was fine, obviously, and obviously that changed when Limerick GA informed that the lads were training there, and that's Limerick's prerogative. That was the decision they made, and why the game was fixed for Dublin, I do not know. Once it was fixed for Dublin, we complained to the LGFA saying, why are you bringing Galway and Cork to Dublin? Surely it's a venue like Thurles and Ennis. We got a lot of different excuses, but we never really got to found the real reason why it was. We accepted that. The game was going ahead. We understand everything that's going on at the moment, and with COVID and the time of the year that it is, we just said, look, we'll just go ahead, we'll play the game. And then, that we accepted that. But obviously things changed yesterday on our route to Dublin.
So en route to Dublin, what happens?
Well, 11 o'clock, we were going into a team meeting ourselves in Kinnegad, just quick kind of stop over for a few minutes, and we were told that the Parnell Park was unplayable, and would we play in Croke Park? They were looking to secure the venue, and they were looking for a 1 o'clock throw-in. We said, look, that's great. Again, we want to be accommodating. Again, we understand the time of the year. We understand with COVID, everything that's happened over the last couple of months. Anyone involved in the team knows at this stage you just have to kind of roll with it and just have to make the best of the situation. So we wanted to be accommodating. We said, no problem, that's great, it's in Croke Park. But I said, we wouldn't make 1 o'clock. We were given assurance that we were given sufficient time to warm up. And I said, once we're given assurance that we're given sufficient time to warm up and it won't affect our preparations, I said, that's fine. We'll go to Croke Park instead of Parnell Park.
How long do you need to warm up, Tim?
Well, usually our warm-up can go from 20 minutes to a half an hour, but anyone involved, again, and anyone who's trade sports involved, but no, you need 20 minutes as a minimum to warm up. It was a really cold, basically, day yesterday, and once we got to Croke Park, there was no problem. We were given our 14-minute slot in the dressing room, which is all you can do with the COVID regulations there at the moment. It was when we hit the pitch, the problem was LGFA officials, the referee, over to us straight away saying you've got 6 minutes to throw in. I approached both the LGFA officials and the referee, told them it was completely unacceptable, that we needed more time than that. We were given little or no basically respect at all. They just kept insisting that it had to be 6 minutes, the game had to go ahead, the game had to go ahead. That's my only regret throughout the whole day, that I didn't walk off to take the girls basically off the pitch at that stage, because it was completely unacceptable the way we were treated.
Okay, so that's obviously the main bone of contention here then.
It is. Look, I had no difficulty moving it to Croke Park. Obviously, it was fine. We were there last year, and there was no issue with that. But it was the way we were treated when we got there. It was completely disrespectful from the referee and from the LGFA officials. They have to understand that the players are central to this, the growth of ladies skating football, and they were treated yesterday like we were the bottom rung of the ladder. And it was completely unacceptable. There was no leeway. I asked for extra time to do the warm-up, and they just wouldn't budge on it at all. I said that wasn't what we had spoke about earlier on, based on the time. And to be honest, sure, we obviously wanted the game to go ahead. But I should have walked off the pitch basically with the group at that stage, because it was completely unacceptable. Again, it does not take away from Cork. They deserve to win the game. We're the better team. But it obviously did have an impact in our preparation, obviously had an impact on our performance. But again, I want to stress that this is not taking it away from Cork. They were the better team and they deserve to win the game.
It must be very frustrating, Tim, given how much of a conversation there is around women's football and the growth of the game over the last number of years. And we've seen the record crowds at All-Ireland finals, and here is an All-Ireland semi-final, as big a game as there's going to be for one of those two teams this year, and you get moved and moved again, and then ultimately a different story is told to you from what actually happens.
Yeah, look, I think anyone who's involved in ladies sports understands what a fantastic, and particularly in ladies daily football, what a fantastic sport it is. Like, it's full of brilliant people who do some really, really brilliant work. But there just seems to be something there from the LGFA that they just can't seem to keep pace with that as regards the professionalism that's required from them to ensure that the girls are treated with respect and that the competition is run off fairly. Like, there's just, I've had 3 years involved in ladies football, and I can come up numerous instances where it's just not acceptable, and they just would not get that in the men's game. And if we're talking about progress, these are things right in front of our eyes that we just need to fix. It's just unacceptable the way that happened yesterday. I actually didn't realise, I was so wrapped up in the team, that the game wasn't being televised. And, like, that's unacceptable to have an All-Ireland semi-final not televised. It's just unacceptable. That was the reason we went back training through COVID and everything else, to provide entertainment for people who were sitting at home, who couldn't get out and mix with people, to provide the distraction. For the girls' families and friends and supporters of ladies getting football, for that game not to be televised, it's just unacceptable.
Tim, do you think this would have happened if the GAA and the LGFA and the Camogie Association, the talks that we've been hearing about now for the best part of a decade, if they'd actually reached the end and this was all a properly unified organisation, do you think that would have happened yesterday?
Well, look, I don't know, and look, that is the way to go with it. And, you know, these are the same people that are involved in 3 organisations in many cases. So that needs to happen, you know, that the 3 organisations coming together. But yes, that is solely with the LGFA yesterday and the officials of Way. It just felt like they just wanted to get the game out of the way and I understand this time of the year, and I understand with COVID, but just wasn't acceptable. And I really regret that they didn't take a stronger stance on it yesterday. When it did arise like that, because we in our own group we're always talking about high standards and you know that we wouldn't, you know, things that we're trying to implement in our own kind of group. But I probably let the group down yesterday in not insisting that we get more time in the preparation, or you know, and that's something I regret. And
so you're literally talking about 20 minutes here.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. You know, we got 7 minutes of a warm up. That's completely unacceptable. It's just not good enough after driving up from Galway that morning.
Is that solely, Tim, because the men's game is due to throw in at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously they had to give time for extra time, and they had to give, you know, and so on. And obviously we had to be out of the stadium, and they cleaned down the stadium. I totally understand that. There was nothing wrong with that. But when we spoke earlier with the LGFA, I said, that's fine. Once we're given sufficient time, we'll be fine. You know, because they said, no, you'll be grand, we'll give you time and everything else. And that's just not what happened. I understood they were obviously in a rush and they were under time constraints. But if they'd said that to us, that we were going to get 7 minutes of a warm-up, we wouldn't have proceeded on from Kinnegad yesterday, you know. It's just completely unacceptable. I appealed to the referee, and I said to him, if someone gets injured here, I said, it'll be on you, because 7 minutes warming up players at an inter-county level for the pace of the game and everything else is just completely unacceptable. But no, he just wanted to push ahead. He kept blowing the whistle. The LGFA officials kept coming over into our group as we were doing the warm and shouting, you've got 6 minutes, girls, you've got 6 minutes, girls. It was just completely unacceptable way to be treated.
Tim, thanks a million, and commiserations on the defeat, but I think it is important that you kind of raise these issues so that everybody can actually see that there are still different standards when it comes to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and what's expected of women participants versus what's accepted of men participants. So I know it can't be easy to come out the day after you've been beaten and to have this conversation, but I think it's important that you did. So thanks a million for joining us this morning.
All right, cheers.
Tim Rabbit there, the manager of the Galway women's football team, who were beaten by Cork yesterday. Aisling O'Reilly was watching these games for us. Obviously that game wasn't televised in the end, Aisling, and I think, you know, a lot of people wanted to see how well that Galway team were going to do. They have been a team that's coming in recent seasons, and they obviously didn't perform yesterday.
No, and it was just a fiasco from the start to finish. You know, I was waiting for it to come on, and popped an old game of Mayo playing, and I was like, what's going on here? You know, we had to look back on Twitter. There was a last minute announcement, I think it was 10 minutes to go, that it won't be televised. And you can understand why it wasn't televised. Like, I'm sure TG Carr were set up in Parnell Park and they couldn't move all their equipment, you know, quickly to get to Croke Park, and that's fair enough. But it's just the whole thing to be given, I think it was 5 to 11, they were told that they're going to be changing venue and it's going to be brought forward half an hour. I was just picturing those girls coming from Kinnegad and thinking, like, they're coming into an All-Ireland semi-final. What's going through their head on the way down now, on the bus or the cars, whatever way they came? All they're thinking is, okay, we've less time to warm up. My mum and dad can't watch. My friends can't watch. You know, all these things that shouldn't be going through your head and going into an All-Ireland semi-final. You know, it's just panic. So it's just unbelievable. As Tim said there, you can hear it in them, like, not to get the time to do the warm-up and for them to be coming over shouting at them while they're doing it. It's just totally unacceptable. And I just think that if we don't have these conversations, you know, nothing's going to change. I don't know who's to blame here. I don't want to say it's all on the LGFA. I'm sure, like, you can't control the weather, but, like, I think, why couldn't it be pushed out by 15, 20 minutes? You know, was that something with the men's game that I don't know, where they asked, where, you know, I'm sure they wouldn't have minded by pushing it out. So I wonder why that couldn't happen. And then also another question we have to raise is, if it was played in Croke Park in the end, why couldn't it have been there in the first place?
Well,
you know, if it was that easy.
That is a good question, because if you plan for this in the first place, then the fixtures and everybody understands exactly what's going to happen, and the TV thing. There's different TV companies who provide the footage, but the equipment is the same, and there were multiple feeds being provided yesterday from Croke Park to both Sky and RTE, and I'm sure a deal could have been done somewhere along the way for the benefit of the women's game. And again, if you had a central organisation saying, look, if this is going to happen, I need your help, there would have been an easier route to that. So there's a lot of places where this has fallen down.
Yeah,
go right
big
back
time.
To the start. Sorry, again, just if you do go back to the start, Limerick, when it was fixed originally, when that first conversation is had with the Limerick County Board, and they say, yes, you can have the game here, but by the way, if our hurlers, who you may have noticed are maybe the best team of their generation, win their semi-final, you can't have it here. The LGFA didn't turn around and say, well, actually, that's probably going to happen. Let's go somewhere else. Let's plan for somewhere else. But to go ahead with that, fix it, and then go, can't happen here, and now we're going to go into this cycle of changing venue. Like, from start to finish, Aisling, it just seems insanity.
Yeah, like, straight away, you're just... And that story nearly gets sidetracked because of all this, and that's a story in itself. And it's just always second fiddle, and it's just not good enough. Like... something should have been in place that, okay, yes, Limerick will probably get to the All-Ireland hurling final. We all know that. So, you know, why wasn't there something else put in place there? And then obviously to have the whole Parnell Park and then to Croke Park, it's just a mess. And it just overshadowed the game. It overshadowed the skill, the girls. Then obviously it's a huge occasion. You don't train all year long to not get a chance to go out and give your all on an All-Ireland semi-final day. Do you know, for them girls then to go and have to rush the whole process, for their parents and family and everybody not to be able to see it, just, it's all one big mess. And it just says there's not a level playing field here. Unless we all come together under one umbrella of the GA, these problems are going to continue to happen.
Cork end up annihilating Galway. It's 217 to 13 points, and this was a Galway team who made it tricky for Dublin last year in the Ireland final. Horrific weather conditions, so it's difficult to know exactly what the difference between the two teams would have been on a good day. But Cork are going to, obviously, they come from a winning football culture. It's been a while since they've been as good as the great team that they're natural successors to. But what do you make about what might actually happen in the final?
Yeah, like, obviously the game, you know, was 2 goals in after I think it was 17 minutes, and that was huge for Cork. They really just got off the mark straight away. And I think that, you know, we've seen with Cork, they've played against Dublin in the 2015, 2016, 2017. There was great rivalry there between them two, and they got over the line both of those 3 finals. So there's loads of experience in that team, and there's a great rivalry. So no doubt, I think it's going to be very, very tight, and it'll definitely be no different in that. But I think something that Dublin probably do well is their running game, and it's something that Mick Bowen has really seemed to hammer home. They always break a pace, and, you know, there's support play always on either side. And I think if Cork can put a stop to that, you know, it can really make a big difference on the day. They have those Sullivan sisters. They're just epic. Kieran Donaghy, Hannah Looney, and obviously Orla in up front. She was brilliant yesterday. I think she got 8 frees and 1 from play. And if you have someone like Orla who can really step up on those big occasions to, you know, taking the frees, and she's on form, you know, anything can happen, and it's going to be seriously close. I think it's going to be a really tight game.
Yeah, so it's 2 weeks. The 20th of December is that one. Dubs obviously have an extra week and they'll have had the opportunity to scout yesterday. Is that an advantage, or at this stage of the season, does it really matter that much?
Oh, it is. And like everything that went on yesterday, you know, the girls are talking all about that now, and they're talking to friends all about that. And that takes a few days to settle. And I've seen a lot of the girls, like they were saying, oh, it's overshadowed again. Once again, we're talking about something else but the game. And it's just not fair. And of course, that'll give Dublin an extra week's preparation. You know, we've seen they had a few injuries the last day. That gives them an extra week. So, of course, it's nothing but a positive for them. But I've no doubt that the Cork team will be well able to put all that to bed now and to look forward to the 20th. And I think we're all in for definitely a cracker there. It
is a bit bizarre that an All-Ireland semi-final ends up not on TV in this day and age.
Oh my God, it's just unreal. I never thought in 2020 we would actually be talking about this. It's beggars belief, but yeah, it's just very sad for them. Like some of the girls are making their debuts yesterday, and even that, like to be told you're in Parnell Park making your debut, and then you get a call, no, it's actually in Croke Park. So you're like, what? Do you know, that's obviously panic stations too, excitement, but obviously you're not prepared for that. And yeah, it's really sad, and I just think we have to have these conversations like we are, because it has to change at this point.
Aisling, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
No bother, thank you.
Aisling O'Reilly giving us some thoughts there, covering the Women's Football Championship for us over the course of the season. 9:05 here this morning, OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good mornings. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. It will be interesting to see what the fallout from this is, Nathan, because obviously yesterday the men's game was on, and that was the main focus of stuff. But as you slowly begin to realise, hang on, not Ireland football semi-final, not on the telly, because the second venue that they fixed the game for couldn't take the match. Why couldn't it if it could be in Croker? That's a good question. It's a good question there.
It was the first thing I thought of when I saw it was being moved, as to why would you play it in Parnell Park when Croke Park is there, is open, is being set up already for another All-Ireland semi-final. Why wouldn't you go ahead with it there? But the most galling part is bringing it forward half an hour when the team is on their way to the pitch. Totally unacceptable. The LGFA should have been able to say, if we're moving to Croke Park, the game's at 1:30, move the men's game back. It was actually a 3:30 throw-in yesterday. Move it back to 4 o'clock. Move it back to 4 o'clock. And RTE will just have to suck it up. And I have no idea whether RTE had any issue whatsoever. But these are extraordinary times. Listen, sometimes things won't go according to plan. You just got to roll with it.
The FAI Cup final would have been an issue for RTE maybe, but ultimately that ended up running on the other side too. So
potentially the FAI Cup final didn't start till 6:40.
Right.
So
it would have been fine.
There's no way, even if the game had started at 4 and had gone to extra time, you would have, maybe if it went to penalties, you would have had some confusion. But all of these things had to be explored. They were clearly in a panic yesterday morning. But it does ultimately bring back the conversation about what is the LGFA's role. And maybe I'm incredibly naive. It feels as though the LGFA have never been in a stronger position if negotiations are to start with the GEA, with everything that is there with 20 by 20, with all the expectation that will be on the GAA to give them a fair deal, to give them a deal that means every All-Ireland semi-final day is a double header, if they want it. That they get just as many opportunities to play in Croke Park as the men, and they get all the years of experience of organising games that is within the GEA, and suddenly it's all planned out properly to avoid scenarios like this. And Tim's probably right. Listen, they're caught up, they're on the bus, they just feel they need to deliver. But they probably should have put their foot down. He knows that. I think he's acknowledged that and said, listen, 1:30 is when this game is starting, and that's when we're starting the game.
Yeah, throw us out. Go on.
Yeah.
I dare you, throw us out. Sure, look, you live and learn, I suppose. OTBAM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. 9:04 this morning. Here we go. We got coming up on OTB Sports Radio for you today. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock. We're going to be launching this podcast series for you on Christmas Day. Ray Boom Boom Mancini at 1 o'clock. The Sunday papers yesterday from 2 o'clock. Paul Rice's History of Sport is at 3. Our Culture Hall of Fame is Lenny Abramson at 4. OTB Gold is Michael Conlon after being beaten in Rio, which obviously is the series of interviews that he did that catapulted him to global superstardom. And then 7 o'clock tonight, live on OTB Sports Radio, it is the show looking back at another amazing, interesting and certainly narrative-driven weekend of sport. We're back after the ads with Alan Quinlan First though, here's Cian O'Connor, who was at the Cork-Galway game for OTB, talking about the change of venue.
We had arrived at Parnell, we were there ready to go, and then we got the notice that it's coming down here. We came down here and we obviously had a bit of to and fro outside, but that's nothing to do with the teams. But even for the teams, you could see Galway arrived quite late, it appeared. They were out for their warm-up. It only felt like about 5-10 minutes. The game was then pushed from 1 to 10 past 1. Just all in all, just seems very, for an All-Ireland semi-final, it just seems the beyond crazy, farcical scenes almost.
Yeah, I suppose it would be challenging for a player. So sitting here in advance of the game, I think Galway arrived. I remember looking at the clock and it was 12:58, and Galway still weren't on the pitch, nor was a referee. Cork had been out for probably 10 or 12 minutes. Now, the game didn't throw in at 1; it threw in at about 10 past or 11 minutes past. So Galway, I'd say, had a 5-6 minute warm up on the pitch. Now, whether they were doing something in the dressing room is a different story. But even as the referee was frantically blowing his whistle, Cork were sort of taking their positions and pushing themselves on the pitch, and Galway still had their training tops on. So it definitely wasn't an ideal start. Now, whether that made any impact on the result, by the scoreline it would suggest that it didn't, because it wasn't a 1 or 2 point win. It was a comprehensive victory for Cork. So maybe Cork were just able to deal with it better and got on with it a bit better than Galway did.
Just as a player, like for someone that has played at the highest level as well, that level of preparation or lack of preparation, change of venue, etc., that's just not ideal circumstances, really, is it?
It's definitely not ideal circumstances, because every element and every person involved in the setup of a match day, it goes by schedule, and you literally have a schedule pretty much down to the last minute, especially when you get to the venue. Having said that, on our Dublin win in 2010, we had a complete mix-up with our bus, and we ended up our bus being late. And I remember sitting in St. Bridget's looking at my watch thinking I should be in Croke Park doing my warm-up now. Now, we went on to win that day. A different scenario, but sometimes it's a live show and you've just got to get on with it and roll with it a little bit, because mad things happen every now and then.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
Ronnie Whelan could play, by the way. And let me tell you, talk about people being dirty when you could tackle. He was filthy.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Dear me.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Into sports.
20 yards out. Ursa shoot. Dungeon. Oh, what a goal from Fabinho. Wow.
Then get into the all-new OTB Sports app.
I think when he apologises to me, I probably will say hello to him. Yeah, no.
Videos, sports news, live scores, interviews.
If Fabregas is going to come up to me in the street and give me some of the mouth that he would have given me on a football pitch, what do we get a slap?
Plus, exclusive content on the OTB Podcast Network. The biggest names in sports. Ready when you are. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download it now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, your most supported our frontline workers this Movember.
8 minutes past 9 this morning. We're turning to rugby. Alan Quinlan is with us. Good morning to you, Alan. How are you getting on?
Good, thanks, Ger, and yourself?
Yeah, that was much better from Ireland. Scotland were decent in that first half at stages. Ireland sucked up whatever pressure they had, and then were far more clinical than we've seen them be recently.
Yeah, it was a very impressive second half. I think I had a feeling after the game that that was good, and there was a lot of positives there. The accuracy was so much better, the attack shape, and bar a couple of mistakes here and there, I think overall they can take a lot of positives from that. Scotland started the game well, and Ireland didn't panic, and they never really looked like scoring a try. The mistake from Rob Herring for Scotland's try, you know, you could forgive that. But in a tighter game, you get punished and you could lose the game for that. But overall, I just thought it was a much improved performance. And they needed that for themselves more than anything, just for their confidence going by. But it's been, you know, an up and down year for them. 3 losses, nine matches and 6 wins, 3 losses. I think 42 players used, 10 new caps. So there's been a lot of chopping and changing, and still the core of the team is, there's a lot of familiar faces there that had success in 2018, but certainly they can take a lot of confidence from this.
Yeah, the team hasn't changed that much. Were we expecting the team to change a bit more? Is that maybe one of the things that has happened here, is that over the course of this period, there's been a bit of experimentation, but actually he's kind of gone back to the core of the previous team.
There's not a lot more he could have done, if you like. I've said a few times to you on the show here about Ryan Baird. I would have loved to have seen him involved. He got injured. That didn't happen. Dan Levy is going to come back in the mix. You know, there's a number of injuries, Larmer, Ringrose, and, you know, Tyke Furlong. It's going to be a pretty attritional period now with Europe coming up in the next while, then the Interpros, then Europe after Christmas, and they're back into Six Nations. So hopefully some of those injured players can come back, and it'll be great to see, you know, a few new players. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to just put them straight in there for the Six Nations, but someone like Harry Byrne, you know, does he play more games in the next few weeks? Would he come into the reckoning for Six Nations? Craig Casey's been doing really well for Munster, Gavin Coombs. So, like I say, you know, Ryan Baird in the next few weeks, if he plays in Europe and does really well and goes on to another level, you have to be careful that you don't throw guys in there, because it'd be brilliant to make a couple of changes when Ireland are full of confidence and their game plan is sticking and they look like they're really cohesive for a couple of games, and you bring a few players in then hopefully to continue that. But I don't think there's a lot more he could have done in regard to personnel changes in the last 8 or 9 months. But you know, the issue is the consistency and you know, not making mistakes, particularly around the breakdown, set piece, all that kind of stuff. We spoke last week about a number of issues there that you can't just get rid of them and say everything is perfect now. We've dominated Scotland probably for 20 years. I think they won 3 times in 20 years. So we have the measure of Scotland. We had the measure of Wales in the first game. We're on a level below England, France, New Zealand, maybe Australia, South Africa. We haven't seen South Africa, but they are World Cup champions. But we're on a level below, and the challenge is to try and get more consistency that's the question. Continuity.
Yeah, so that is the question. What do we need to do to get to the level where we can match England, and when we play England at home, at least be confident that we're going to beat them? Like, I'm looking at the coverage of the England team at the moment, and they're getting hammered. Their own fans were booing them at Twickenham. There's only 2,000 fans, so that's it's a fairly brave person to boo when everybody realises you're not like part of a massive crowd of people just adding your voice. It's like the England fans are booing their own team, and I didn't feel like we were in with a chance of winning the game against England, and it hasn't felt like we've been in with a chance of winning the game against England for 2 seasons at this stage.
Unless we unearth a few incredibly physical, huge specimens of men in the forwards, I think you have to play with a real accuracy against England. You have to move them around. You have to kick well, and stretch them a little bit. So we failed to do that in the last number of matches we played against them. You know, the way the team manned up a couple of weeks ago over in England is very admirable. But I just think we were inaccurate and sloppy in some of the stuff that happened. But you could still, and I know this as a player, you can still take positives out of it. Going forward, I think, you know, the whole accuracy around the breakdown and set piece has to be rock solid and consistent. You cannot win games if you're at 60-70% in those areas at times, and we have been the last number of months. You know, there has been a number of changes. There's concerns about certain areas of the team for sure, that you can't just get rid of guys and bring guys in and expect the same level of performance. But in the next 12 months, I think there'll be so much scrutiny on more change and trying to find a youthful team that can take you to the next World Cup. So how do we beat England? Well, you know, we don't. The reason we do well against Wales and Scotland and these kind of teams consistently is because they don't physically batter us. We can match them. It comes down to a game of rugby then, and your accuracy. You're not under the same physical stress throughout the game. Yeah. And you know, if we're accurate in what we're doing there, we're in the game. We can win those games. Even going into the Scotland game at the weekend, Ger, there was nobody saying, "Well, Ireland are going to be beaten by Scotland." You know, I thought Ireland would win the game, but I wanted them to win in a positive manner, and I think they did that. So they've taken a fair bit of flack in the last while, and it's been deserved, but we'll give them the credit now for this performance. But we want to see more of that. I think we saw some attack at the weekend that was very, very positive. The one where Duncan Taylor got yellow carded, that facet of play was outstanding. The accuracy, the shape. You could argue that a tiny little bit more depth from Bundy Aki and quicker hands would have got the ball away, and it would have finished with a sensational try. But, you know, Keith Earl's try, the hands from Peter O'Mahony, the subtle little changes that, look, they're trying to do, and I'm sure they're conscious and aware of the pressure outside around moving the ball a bit and executing that stuff. So hopefully we can see that going forward. But, you know, the Six Nations is kind of a cup rugby tournament where you have to have a bit of grunt and be physical and aggressive and kind of have a bit of cup rugby there as well. But we need a little bit of subtle skill and style to go with that.
Do you expect, Quinny, a lot of experimentation to continue during the Six Nations, or do you want to settle side? Like, I'm looking at that back row in particular, and that back row that started at the weekend of Stander, O'Mahony and Doris been exceptional. But then you look at Leinster alone and the amount of backup options, whether it's Max Deegan, Josh van der Fleer, you mentioned Dan Levy coming back, Will Connors is coming in. Do you want to see all those players get game time, or is the preference that actually Andy Farrell picks his best three and sticks with that for as many games as possible?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Nathan, and it's one that it's asked a lot over the years. I think there's a pressure on to do really well in the Six Nations, because if you make multiple changes just to look at guys, okay, you want to give exposure at certain times to people, but if you make multiple changes at times to look at guys and you lose the match, well then, you know, the pressure heaps on the coach. You've got to win the Six Nations. It generates the money. So I think he's got to pick his best team. But in the next 6 to 8 weeks, I think, if players are really you know, Peter O'Mahony was brilliant on Saturday. He's had a really good autumn for a guy who wasn't picked at the start of it. Stander's been really good. Quieter game on Saturday, but his consistency. Doris was brilliant at the weekend. If they don't play well for their provinces in Europe, and somebody else like Max Deegan or a Dan Levy or a Josh van der Fleer or, you know, Gavin Coombs even in Munster, if he goes and plays in Europe, well then the questions have to be asked. I think we can't get into a situation now, and this is where Andy has to be careful. And look, he knows these players inside out, that you rely on past performances. I think we've got to pick form players going forward. And then if they don't perform in the international jersey, well, you know, in the media, they'll be crying out for these selections. So there's certain times where you have to give someone the benefit of the doubt if they didn't play well in the last two European games and their team lost, but they've played well over Christmas. So you can't go too long as an international player with poor form, even for your province. So if they play well and they bring that consistency, and Ireland have a good Six Nations, well, then they'll go on a summer tour, and then you can introduce more players. So it's kind of, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't from the coach's point of view. But we definitely need to see guys who are awarded. Players like I mentioned, you know, if Casey plays really well and is involved in some of the big games in the next couple of weeks for Europe, well, then he's gone on to another level. He's done really well for in the Pro 14. He is one for the future. He's cheeky, he's aggressive, he brings his zip energy. There's still a bit of uncertainty. Who's the backup to Conor Murray? You know, will Conor Murray be at the next World Cup? And, you know, I think Casey is a real live wire and an option. So it's about consistency in their performances when they go back now, and that's probably the key around selection going forward. But, you know, I hope Ryan Baird, Coombs, these guys, it'd be great to see some of those under-20s last year knocking on the door now, and Harry Byrne as well.
Yeah, let's talk about Harry Byrne in a minute. Just stay with us. I want to give people one last opportunity to enter our competition. It is the run into Christmas. To help you celebrate an unusual festive season and to stay close to the team of us, Vodafone want to fill your Christmas stocking. Each morning this week, we have a selection of great gifts to give away. This morning, you can win an Irish rugby jersey, a signed copy of Rob Kearney's new book, No Hiding, and a set of wireless sports headphones. To get your name in the hat, just tell us who is today's mystery voice. To enter, send your guess to WhatsApp. The number is 087 180 180, and we'll reveal the answer and the winner before we leave you at 10 o'clock. So this is your last chance to enter. If you don't win today, don't worry. Tune in again tomorrow for more chances to win. It's all thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. Who's this?
You could see that it was going to blow up, and it couldn't have been a senior players meeting actually, because David Wallace was in it.
What a sting. Poor David Wallace is sitting there having his breakfast, listening to the show this morning, going, hey. I think everybody knows who that is, right?
You could see that it was going to blow up, and it couldn't have been a senior players meeting actually, because David Wallace was in it.
Right, let's move on. Alan, and let's talk about the number 10 situation, right? Spiky enough, Johnny Sexton, who's obviously reading what the media has to say, which is interesting enough. The Irish rugby team seems, of all of the sports teams, they're fairly open about actually reading everything that's written about them, and they deny it, but they clearly do. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know. But where are we with regards to the pecking order for number 10? Did Burns present himself as a viable option there to the two Byrne brothers? Too many Burns.
Deep Burn. Yeah, Look, Billy Burns, I think, is a very talented player. Is he good enough, and can he be consistent enough and dominant enough? We haven't seen enough of him yet. He's a very talented player. He'll grow in confidence from getting capped. Ross Byrne, I think, has been thereabouts and close to, the backup. What would be brilliant for me and everyone, I think, in Irish rugby, if we could see Joey Carberry back out in the field in January, which is a possibility. There's a possibility he's not going to be rushed back from this one, but it'd be brilliant to see him back. I get excited about Harry Byrne as well. I think Ben Healy's done well in Munster. Jack Crowley's another good option there as well, who's done really well for the 20s. So has the gap closed? It hasn't, unfortunately, and that's a concern. But someday, if the gap hasn't closed, we're just going to have to play whoever's next in line, and they're going to be the ones who are going to try and grasp onto the jersey. But hopefully some of the younger players will have a more aggressive challenge to getting that number 10 jersey and the number 9 jersey, because Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton are not going to be around forever. It'd be brilliant if they continued on for the next couple of years, and if they both go to the next World Cup, I'm fine with that as long as they're playing well. But it'd be brilliant to have guys really chomping at the bit and getting picked on form ahead of them at times, So, again, it's work in progress, and it's going to take a little bit more time.
We're probably not going to see too much of anybody other than Ross Byrne and Johnny Sexton at Leinster for this season, it looks like, barring an injury.
As regards
seeing Harry,
it's there's nothing Andy Farrell can do about that, because Leo Cullen has got to pick his players according to what his matches that he has there as well. So it's not going to happen straight away, and that's a pity in a sense. But we don't know if Harry Byrne is good enough to step up. Maybe he needs a little bit more time, and a couple of those players maybe will need a little bit more time. So. But I don't think it's I think overall, what Sexton has brought has been phenomenal. His consistency in performances and his ability and aggression and leadership and in the team has been second to none. But no matter what level and what player you are, you need to be pushed and challenged as well. And like I say, Carberry was the one who was a real kind of live contender to actually take Johnny Sexton's place, but the injuries have tormented him, so hopefully we can see him back as well.
All right, so out of 10, how would you rate the November/early December tournament that we've just been?
Well, it was probably a 5 or 6 before the weekend, but I bring it up to a 7, maybe 7.5, really, because I got enthused by what I saw in the second half. It's not about firing the ball everywhere, Ger, and scoring tries the length of the field, but it's just about not being looking so predictable and cumbersome at times, and I think they did that really well on Saturday. Like I said, the challenge is to try and find some consistency around that.
Quinny, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.
Alan Quinlan giving us his thoughts there. 7.5 out of 10, not bad. It is time for Monday's Gillette Pressure Rankings.
You put them under pressure.
For me, it was a self-imposed pressure.
Was I under pressure? No.
Yeah, they're under pressure. Everyone's under pressure.
OTB AM's Pressure Rankings with Gillette.
And the big pressure.
Right. Nathan's doing the pressure rankings for us this week. A lot of pressure on you, Nathan, to deliver a copy as funny and clean as Owen Sheehan's.
Okay, Ger. Thanks. I'll try my very best. At number 5 in the latest pressure rankings, Ger, is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So Manchester United, 9 away wins in a row in the Premier League after destroying West Ham in the second half. But they know they need to go to Leipzig tomorrow night and get something. A Champions League exit, an early Champions League exit, having beaten Paris Saint-Germain and Leipzig in the first 2 matches. Well, would it be a step too far for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, for Manchester United supporters, and maybe even for Ed Woodward? He needs something tomorrow night. And also, they just need to start getting a bit of bloody consistency, because God knows what you're going to get from Manchester United. So while he may not lose his job this week, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is under pressure.
But if he gets a result against RB Leipzig, suddenly it's like, you know, competing in the title race and out of a very tricky group. That's an amazing achievement.
They're not competing in the title race, though. Nobody actually believes they're competing in the title race. They may be there right now on points, but they are scraping through, just about hanging on. So the league table does lie in this case.
All right. Are you sure? I mean, it's not the most clear-cut of seasons / title race. Points are being dropped.
It's not. Points are being dropped, but Manchester United are going to drop more points than anybody else. So in that title race, they are not contenders. They're nowhere near the quality of Liverpool or Manchester City. They have nowhere near the cohesiveness of a Tottenham. So they may well finish inside the top 4. They won't finish as many points behind Liverpool as they did last season. But there's nothing that I've seen from Manchester United so far this season to suggest that they're title contenders.
Right, number 4, Mikel Arteta. I can see why there's pressure on Mikel Arteta, but explain a bit further about how crap they've become.
I was one of those who believed in Mikel Arteta at the start of the season, who thought actually everything he's learned from Pep Guardiola, a solid enough base at Arsenal. It would take time, but they'd be contending for Champions League positions at the very least this season. But it's fallen incredibly flat. They are probably the most boring team to watch in the Premier League right now. Incredibly dull. And to keep doing the same thing 44 times yesterday, just planting balls in on top of the 2 Spurs centre half, is one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in the Premier League so far this season. And Arteta never changed it. Somehow as well, he has managed to turn one of the best strikers in the Premier League, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, into a bang average footballer who looks like he is devoid of any confidence. He is nowhere near the calibre he was at last season. And all the worst aspects of Arsenal from the last few years all seem to be returning very quickly. So Mikel Arteta is under massive pressure. They're 15th in the table.
Yeah.
15th. All right, they're not in the relegation scrap right now because there's so many poor teams below them who started the season so slowly. But 15th, I can't believe quite how bad it's gone.
Is he
5 defeats in their last 7?
in danger of being sacked? He must be.
It's hard to know, isn't it? It doesn't seem to be that level of pressure around him in terms of being sacked right now. And they did hang on with Unai Emery probably that little bit too long. He seems to have a good relationship with those above him. So I think he will get through the Christmas. But if this doesn't turn around quickly, and they've got a very favourable run of games over the next 3-4 weeks, they've got a lot of games. They're obviously playing Dundalk on Thursday night. I think they're playing Stoke in the League Cup. If they were to suddenly lose to Stoke in the League Cup, then maybe there's a few more questions been asked. But if they haven't won of their next 5 league games, 3 of them, I would say he's definitely going to be under huge pressure.
All right, Stephen Kenny. Why does Stephen Kenny make the power rankings today, pressure rankings today?
Well, the draw, Ger, takes place this evening for the 2022 World Cup qualifiers. Ireland are in pot 3. It's due to get underway around 5 o'clock. It should be finished by about 10 o'clock tonight, going on previous FIFA World Cup draws.
Is that a joke, or is it actually 5 hours long?
No. And in fact, it's going to be even shorter than normal, apparently, because in these COVID times, they can't bring, they can't fly thousands of FIFA executives and everybody who's ever played an international game of football to the one place to drag it out for as long as possible. So it shouldn't take, I think, maybe an hour and we might be done. The draw isn't the only thing that's important for Stephen Kenny. The fixtures, which should be out later tonight as well, is also crucial. So Ireland could be in a 5-team pot or a 6-team pot, depending on how the draw goes. If they're in a 6-team group, they're going to end up playing 3 games in March, once again in the space of 6 days, Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday. how those fixtures land is out of Ireland's control. If you end up having to play, so for example, in pot 1, you could end up getting Spain or Belgium. In pot 2, you could get Switzerland or Sweden. If you somehow ended up having to go to Sweden in your first match and then a home game against Belgium in a half-empty Aviva Stadium, there's almost impossible for them to get any sort of momentum. To flip that, you could in pot 4 end up getting Albania or Luxembourg. Like, you could end up in a group with Luxembourg, Andorra, and San Marino. And if somehow you can get 2 of them in your first 3 games, then there's a real opportunity to build a bit of momentum. It'll be the sort of Mick McCarthy style group where Ireland, on all their favourable fixtures, in the first half of the draw, you built up a lead and then you try and defend it somehow as you go on.
Nil all your way to the...
Listen, we want Denmark and Wales. That is what we want here once again. Denmark is top seeds, Wales is second seeds, and let's see where we go from there.
Can I just not have Denmark and Wales in a group, please? I've had enough of them.
No, this is the dream right now.
No, it's not. Wales would beat us 3-0.
No.
We turned Ethan Ampadu into a world-class player.
That was a one-off.
It seems to have been.
What's he done since?
I mean,
struggling to get in the Sheffield United team.
Been on the bench quite a lot for a lot of teams.
Can't get past John Egan. Come on, we don't need to worry about that.
Splitting Dublin is number 2. This is the anti-Dub-Mayo diatribe.
Well, the pressure is on. It's all anybody's talking about. It's literally the topic of conversation everywhere around the country. When is it going to happen? It's not a matter of if anymore, Ger. It's a matter of when. Should we do it? Like, do we just let them keep rolling on till they've won 10 in a row? Does there need to be a natural stopping point before you split them? Should they start with maybe an invitational game every year where, I know they used to have the Dub Stars, or maybe they still do, where you have a North v South. See, can you start selling a few tickets for it and build it from there? And there's a bit of a scrap in a few of those games. Suddenly the Northsiders hate the Southsiders a little bit more than they already do. And there's a rivalry born from that, and everyone wants to see it in more competitive circumstances. But the talk has started, and it's not going to stop. And we have gone through it briefly today, but there is no real other solution that is definitely going to hamper this Dublin side than quite literally splitting them in 2, and maybe even 3 or 4.
I think splitting them in 2 is literally pointless, because you'll have the same scenario very soon afterwards as their better processes and industrialised. They industrialised the process of finding talent over the last decade. They've got better at it than everybody. They've got better at managing talent and making those players, they cleave them to their cause in a way that benefits them later in life as well. That is very difficult for other counties to do because they don't have the resources of the network. So, it's all set up for perpetual glory here, and no one actually wants to interrupt that. I don't think that we should be punishing Dublin for all the good quality work that they've done. It's about learning from it and making the competition as fair as possible.
Well, as Kieran Donaghy touched on earlier, it's money and it's structure. And maybe one does lead to the other, but Dublin have the money and the structure. Other counties, you would expect, are going to start to get the money, but do they have the structures in place to actually fully utilise that and close that gap? Kieran was referencing the Premier League and Manchester United and Arsenal. What's happened with, say, Liverpool taking over from Manchester United is Liverpool firstly had the money, so they go and they buy Alisson, and they go and they buy Virgil van Dijk, and they buy the best players in the world. But also they have the structure to do that. They have the best manager in Jurgen Klopp. They've got people like Michael Edwards behind the scenes, whereas you look at Manchester United, while they might have the money, right now they don't have the structure. So you need both. And does every county board have the structure that if they get a massive jump in funding over the next year, 2, 3 years, that they're going to use that in the right way?
Let's have a quick look around the country. The Cork County Board did such a great job with Páirc Uí Chaoimh. The Mayo County Board did such a great job with their funding relationship with their outside funders. Kildare needed help from Croke Park Centrally. Galway had a letter from one of their sponsors published in the papers about how well they were running things. So maybe throwing money at the county boards is not the right scenario. Maybe those structures aren't fit for purpose either. So there's actually a million different things here that could be fixed if you decided, OK, we're going to tackle the issue of competitive unfairness, Dublin's population size, and the governance structures in each of these counties, which doesn't seem to make any sense. Number 1, Mayo hype. Nathan, how the hell are you guys all going to try and yarrow away the hype for the next fortnight when you know yourself that this is your favourite part, the bit where you talk yourselves into the chance that maybe this year the curse will die?
Well, Ger, right now I am drinking from my Kieran MacDonald cup. Can you see my Kieran MacDonald cup?
Yeah.
I'm drinking coffee from it right now, but this is going to be overflowing with champagne over the coming weeks. Yes, Mayo are back, baby. We are back where we belong, in the All-Ireland final. Unfortunately, COVID has chosen to destroy our build-up, so there will be no mass gathering of Mayo people in D2 of a Saturday night, 20 quid in, nice little gig for everybody involved. Unfortunately, that's not going to be there this time round. There will be no corporate box. Kevin Kilbane will not be coming back. Hey, it was all for the good of the team. That's the type of people we are, Ger. We just put ourselves out there all so that they can go on a nice fancy holiday at the end of the year. Kevin Kilbane, I'm hearing, is not getting the private jet from Canada. He is not going to just come straight in. No quarantine for him as a celebrity. There is no corporate boxes open. This is going to be a very different experience for everybody on Saturday week. But you're right. Having gone into this weekend thinking, doesn't really matter anyways, go away. Our Dublin are going to hammer absolutely everybody. Semi-final, final. Now I'm looking and thinking, you know what? Mayo have the finest forward of this generation in Cillian O'Connor. That was his 4th championship hat-trick yesterday. What did he score? 4-8, 4-9 yesterday alone. He's back. He's fully fit. He's the all-time championship top scorer. He is ready to take down this Dublin side. And if Mayo need to score 4 or 5 goals on All-Ireland final day, well, let's go do it. This is the time. I know there's people feeling, do you want to win it this year when you can't properly celebrate? Can you believe that the day before the All-Ireland final, they're breaking down the county borders? You can travel wherever you want. I can go straight down that M4 all the way to Castlebar, and nobody can stop you. The cars can put up all the checkpoints they want. This is necessary travel. And they've done that the day before the All-Ireland football final. Can that be a coincidence? I think not.
Do you think by pointing that out now that maybe that would be, hang on lads, we made a mistake there. All the Mayo lads are going to go book mental. We'd make it 2 days after the All-Ireland final so we can stop them. They have to.
Yeah, listen, Dublin are a once-in-a-lifetime team, Ger. Unfortunately, it's the 3rd once-in-a-lifetime team they have. And as always, Mayo are just happy to be there, happy to take part. And who knows, maybe we will win just this once.
Right. Okay. Last one. Should the LGFA be under pressure to join up with the GAA, or should the GAA be under pressure to join up with the LGFA?
They should both be under pressure, shouldn't they? That actually this is the best thing for sport within this country. But the LGFA should come out and say, you know what, we want this. We've taught long and hard, whatever processes they need to go through. It does feel as though right now there are more benefits than ever before for the LGFA. I think with everything that's going on in Irish sport, with the 20x20 movement, that whatever they want, there's never been a better opportunity to come on and put pressure, even if they're within the circle, even if they're within the GAA. If they're not getting what they want, they will be heard right now more than ever before. So go and start asking the questions. Get your All-Ireland semi-finals in Croke Park. Get your fixtures, get your stadiums when you want them, and don't have the nonsense that we saw yesterday where games have been brought forward half an hour, 2 hours before throw-in. And yet again, and this is the number one frustration when you talk to all former players, pundits, current players, is that as great a job the LGFA have done, and Camogie maybe to a slightly lesser extent, in getting crowds and increasing attendances at finals, it is the controversy that we come back to again and again. And it can't be a coincidence that it seems to be a never-ending controversy around big games, around big events every single year. They just need to get their heads down, get their house in order, and start celebrating the matches.
That's it. That's this week's Pressure Rankings.
OTB AM's Pressure Rankings with Gillette.
Right, OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Right, I want to tell you about who won our rugby competition this morning to celebrate the festive season and to stay close to the team of us. Vodafone want to help you fill your Christmas stocking. We've given everybody the chance to win some great prizes on OTBM this week. We've asked you to text in who this was.
You could see that it was going to blow up, and it couldn't have been a senior players meeting actually, because David Wallace was in it.
Congratulations to Patrick Kenny, this morning's winner on OTBM. He correctly identified. Who did he identify, Nathan?
Paul O'Connell.
Well done, yeah. So a signed copy of Rob Kearney's new book, No Hiding, and a set of wireless sports headphones plus an Irish rugby jersey are going to be winging their way to Patrick Kenny. It's all thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team, and we'll have more opportunities for you to enter and to win on tomorrow's show. We have loads more still to come for you on the show this hour. Tomorrow we're going to hear from Graham Hunter. We'll check in with Tip and Cavan, and we'll kick off our build-up to the All-Ireland hurling final. Right now, though, we're bringing you more from Andy Moran on Mayo's chances and Brian Kerr talking about the North London Derby.
For All-Ireland finals against Dublin 2013, 16, 17, Andy. Mayo fans are absolutely fantastic. They've got such passion for the game, such hype, there's the ticket rush, all that kind of thing. But that not being there this year with no crowds, and that's really disappointing. Will that in a way, though, aid and help the Mayo players so they can just concentrate on the process?
Yeah, you'd love to say it now because we're there. To me, that's part of it. It's part of the whole... the fact that the fans weren't here, the fact that you had to get tickets, the fact that there was a banquet. We lost to Dublin by a point in 13. We lost to Dublin by a point in 17. We brought them to a replay in 16. Were the fans the positive or the negative in that? To me, the Mayo fans are always a positive. They've come all around the country for them. Today, what they'd have done to being able to be here, to see Cillian O'Connor do a record score in the championship, a record goal in the semi-final, for me, the fans add to this Mayo team. And I'd love them to have been here in 2 weeks' time. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Is it a benefit or a negative? I think it's the same for both teams. I think the Dubs live off the energy that the Hill gives them. Yes, it brings pressure, but yes, when they need it, that's what brings them. Mayo are similar. When the real need is there to lift a team, the Mayo fans have always lifted it. So there's both positives and negatives. That I think both teams kind of lose and gain from what is of each. So yeah, I'd love them to be here, but unfortunately it's not going to happen.
What would your advice be, Andy, given you've been in the cauldron against Dublin and been so close and you've been unlucky and it just hasn't gone your way? These are your friends, these are your former teammates. What is your advice to them? What are the lessons you've learned over maybe the preparations and the tight games you've had with the Dubs in the past?
Yeah, I think like going back to the old kind of, you can only control what you can control. Like Cillian can only control what practice he puts in there. David Clark can only control in terms of what kicking he's going to do. Chris Barrett, who he's going to mark. Like you can only actually do what you need to do for your team and what instruction James gives them, and do that to the best of your ability. And that's what I'd be saying to them. Just focus now. Let's get back to training on Wednesday. Let's go again. Let's try to tidy up the defensive stuff a tiny bit so Dublin aren't going through like Tipperary did, and let's be more clinical up front, because we had a few more chances there that could have been taken today which weren't taken. So as clinical as you can, hopefully get a bit of luck on the day and just tidy it up then at the back.
There is a little bit of anger out there I saw on Twitter. Maybe that's just a Twitter social media toxic thing. But there is a big debate about the Dubs in the moment. The fact that they've had maybe a few iterations of this team now. This could be Dessie Farrell's first year, and they don't look in any way that they're weakening. Is structurally the championship in a lot of bother? Is Dublin's dominance, and we have to wait and see what happens in the final, and Mayo should be competitive, but is Dublin's dominance damaging Gaelic football? Okay, so firstly I would say that the final result shouldn't matter. To this debate, it shouldn't matter, because if Mayo win, the debate is still open, okay? The second thing I would say to it is none of this should be aimed towards Dublin. Dublin have absolutely nailed everything. So if Dublin get a Euro and they use it wisely, fair play to Dublin. They've done really well. If they're doing the coaching well, fair play to Dublin. They're doing it well. The anger should be directed somewhere else. There was a mistake made a couple of years ago, the redirection, and there is a problem. Dublin are going for 6 in a row. Their ladies are going for 4 in a row. Their hurlers have got better. There is an issue there, and it's just the best way to fix that issue. It is not aimed towards the Dublin. The Dublin fans are 100% within their rights to protect the Dublin players. That's basically their job. I said earlier on air, like the likes of the Brogans, Bernard Brogan. I studied Bernard Brogan more than any other forward to try to learn what he was doing and where he moved. And so people respect them. They love watching Fenton, love watching Kilkenny, and all these guys, Con O'Callaghan and Cluxton and all these guys, they love watching them. But there is a greater issue here, and the issue is that other teams need to go and they need to rebuild. Dublin now are already 5, 6, 7 years, maybe even 10 years ahead in that process. So it's how they even up that playing field. If you look at every other sport, I suppose, from soccer, the financial fair play, the draft in America, the way they do the way they do it in the AFL, people are trying to even stuff out all the time. The GA just need to get better at evening that out, and that's the issue. It's not aimed towards Dublin, and I think we need to have a reasoned debate on it of what's the best way to go. And I think the Dublin fans would be fine with that, to be honest with you, if there's a reasoned debate on it. It's not an issue with Dublin. People need to get out of this. It's a GA issue in general. So Andy Moran is the mayor. There's financial maybe stimulus for other counties. There's a structural change. What would your blueprint or your roadmap be for maybe making this more equitable across the board?
Yeah, that's the big question. I don't have the answer, and I think this is a big part of the problem with the structure of the championship, with what we're going to do with Dublin and what that's now at. We all have the argument, but none of us have the solution. So we need to go away, and that's what I'm saying. The reasoned debate of how we're going to get other counties up to a level where they can compete with this Dublin machine. If we think about it, if our championship is just hoping for this once off, maybe in 2 weeks Mayo winning, and then Dublin go and do another 5 in a row, or Kerry coming maybe challenging for 2 or 3 years' time, what happens if Kerry don't win? Where does it stop? And again, we see with their ladies are fantastic. Like it's brilliant to watch the way they move the ball, the scores they're getting. It's the same as the fellas. It's just, but they've got brilliant coaching at primary school level. Their clubs are doing really well both on and off the field, and it's just feeding into the county team. And the people in the background deserve. If it was a business, you'd be saying fair play to you. But this is supposed to be an amateur sport, and we need to kind of even it out a tiny bit. That's it.
Ali Moran, just to finish. 69 years, all the curses and the Foxford and all that kind of stuff, and Mayo, and no fans here. And Waterford are going for their first All-Ireland since 1959 next week in the hurling. It'd be kind of it would sum up 2020 if Mayo are going to do it. And let's hope, from a neutral's perspective, even on a dub, I'd love to see Mayo win the All-Ireland. If they're going to do it, Andy, and ruling out the heart, what will they need to do to win the All-Ireland this year?
I think you need to be honest. I think today, if Dublin go through and they get them goal chances, flicking across Clarkey and it's been patted into the back of the net, okay, we take that out. You need the look. At times we haven't got it, and you need that little bit of luck. But also you need to be really defensively strong, really close the space on these Dublin players. Don't be afraid to let Dublin have the ball for 3 or 4 minutes, because they're going to hold on to it. Be patient, take your time and get rid of it. You have to get a Cluxton's kick out as best you can, and on our kick out with David Clark and goals, it needs to be secure, and you need to be secure in possession all the time. So there's a few variants. The scoring rate has to be higher from everybody else. Killian, let's call it, Killian isn't going to score 4-9 the next year, get near it. So the scoring rate from the other forwards, Tommy Conroy getting 4 points today was excellent, but we need the other forwards to get a tiny bit more. Paddy Durkin has 4 opportunities today. We need Paddy to go from 1 out of 4 to at least 3 out of 4. You know, all them chances have to get over the bar. But if you do that, you have a chance. The key metric always in this is, can Mayo get to 20 points or above? And if you have, you give yourself a chance against Dublin. If you don't, you've no chance, because they're going to get to that mark. So get to 20 points, get a few goals on the board, see where it takes you, and then listen, we'll see.
Andy Moran, we never know. All we can do is wish you the best of luck on Saturday the 19th.
Thanks very much.
So Spurs top of the Premier League, Brian, after a somewhat bizarre North London derby. 2-0 to Tottenham. Arsenal absolutely dominated possession, yet still as comfortable a win as I can remember Spurs having in a North London derby.
For sure. It's normally a game, Nathan, with plenty of goals, and in the past Spurs have often floundered from a lead position, but today in the system that they're playing and the confidence they're playing with and the individual performances, it did come out to be a comfortable win. 2 magnificent goals in the first half on the counter-attack, typical of Spurs performances now under Jose Mourinho, and not unlike the game with Manchester City, where they did the same thing and kind of suffocated Manchester City the second half. Today they allowed Arsenal to have the ball, and as you suggested, Arsenal never really looked like they were going to pull it out, although had they had the breakthrough, or at least had a couple of saves to make, a couple of decent headers from Lacazette. But other than that, it was just Arsenal with the ball, putting it into the penalty area, and Spurs clearing it with reasonable composure and confidence, you'd have to say, but certainly great organisation, discipline and understanding of how they were going to go about their business.
We could spend all day, as normal, talking in superlatives about Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, but the goals are only half the story. It was the defensive side of it, and Alderweireld and Dyer and Højbjerg, and not even just them. It looks as though Mourinho has a group of players there now who really do believe and trust in what he's telling them to do, because they didn't offer anything in the second half. It was a very unselfish performance, it felt, from a side who were 2-0 up in a North London derby, who I'm sure would love to have gone out and scored more goals.
Yes, that looks like the way it is. I mean, the players are brought into it because it's been successful. They're winning games. They're probably getting substantial bonuses for winning games. They lost the first match of the season. Other than that, they've not lost a game. Lost a game in the Europa League, but they're stringing the wins together and against the better teams. I think, for years Spurs have struggled against the traditional top six away from home, particularly, but even at times at home too. And As you said the word unselfish, I think that's fair to say. You look at the discipline of Sissoko and Højbjerg playing deep, often back between the centre halves and their own full backs. Today, mostly just out in front of them, but rarely in the other half of the pitch. Lo Celso too has become a very disciplined player when he gets the chance. That's only his second start. He generally coming on as sub, played instead of Ndombele today. I thought he put in a great performance, superb pass on the second goal when the counter-attack situation when Spurs won the ball back at the edge of their own box. But yeah, nothing in the second half in terms of controlled possession, maybe one little spell at one stage, but in general I would say they had very few passes in the opposition's half, but they seemed quite content with that. The players have bought into it. The crowd that were there today were happy enough with it. They didn't see much action, and at the end they were behind the far goal, let's say, from where Spurs scored, but they would be just delighted with the position that the team are in, and that they're at the top of the table, and that they beat Arsenal in a North London derby. It'd be interesting how the crowd would react to them playing like that consistently, allowing the opposition to have the ball in their own stadium. I'm not sure. I think Spurs supporters would like to see a bit more of them as a team controlling the game in the opposition's half and having some shots on goal. I can only remember 3 attempts on the goal today, of which they scored 2. But look, it's working for them at the moment, so there'll be very little complaints.
Go on then, talk in the superlatives about Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. Son on to 10 goals for the season, Kane on to 8. Once again, they were the providers for each other's goals, and listen, we all know how good Harry Kane is. Heung-min Son was probably one of the more underappreciated players in the Premier League in previous seasons, did the job, but Harry Kane took all the plaudits. The level Son is at, are you surprised in any way he's been able to get to that higher level that we've seen from him, 10 goals in 11 games?
I think he's an extraordinary fella. In his work rate for Spurs over the years was never underestimated. He's been a great player for them. He's technically very, very good on either side of the pitch, right or left. I think he's better on the left in the position we saw him today, coming in on his right foot. But he has scored all sorts of different goals for Spurs. You mentioned the commentary, his best season was a few seasons ago. He got 14 in one season. He's been hovering around the 10 mark in the last couple of seasons. This season he's already on 10. So I think this is going to be his best season if he stays fit. Had a few little problems last year. Remember, he got sent off a couple of times last season, and then, and he's not a player who gets involved in tackles in a nasty way, but he's a brilliant foil for Kane and for anyone in the team. His work rate is just extraordinary. You think about him going off and doing his time in the army in Korea last year, come back and then just seem to take it on again from where he let it off before he went. So he's just an all-round great guy. He generally plays with a smile on his face. He has a massive fan club. We've been over there and seen the number of Korean fans outside the stadium before the match. The adoration that is there for him from I'd say Koreans and maybe people all around the world, but particularly in Asia. I'd say he's such a big star, but he deserves to have got that status. He plays the game with a smile on his face, plays with great diligence, works hard for his team, enjoys when some other players achieve things and score goals in matches. But I think he is world class at the moment himself, and Harry Kane as regards, if you're looking at the top 10, 15 strikers in the world, you'd have to include both of them in that status.
They are now top of the league. We're 11 games in. They've got Kane and Son. It goes without saying, I guess, they're contenders. If you're looking at Tottenham sustaining this and actually getting right to the very end, which they've done not that long ago when Mauricio Pochettino was there, is there any weak link? Is there any part of that team? Is there any obvious place where actually they're going to fall down over the coming months?
Well, if they have more possession, if they are to play against opposition, say the teams from the lower part of the league, you look already to beat West Brom, were fortunate enough, 1-0 victory over Burnley as well, with Bale come on, get a headed goal. And, you know, you look at the match back as far as the Newcastle game, the 1-1 draw, where the opposition allows Spurs to do what Spurs have done to Manchester City, Chelsea, and now today Arsenal, where they concede ground and concede possession. Then have they got the creativity and the pace to make goals and score goals and to be solid against opposition who have a lot of players back on the pitch and have the opportunity to counter-attack against them. That, as it goes on, will be interesting to see. Can they deal with that situation where they become so respected by other teams in the league that they have to break down the opposition and not concede as they did to Newcastle, or not concede as they did to West Ham. They look better now. They look like a more organised unit, and certain players have emerged, like Aurier, I'd say, in particular on the right-hand side. Left-hand side looks better now with Reguilon, although I think Davies is a very reliable defender. The centre-half pairing seems to have sorted itself out, and the central holding pairing in midfield. These were all areas that weren't very clear in the first few games. I mean, Sanchez played a lot of matches early on. That was a partnership with Dyer and with Alderweireld at various times. We've seen Rodon coming in and do a very good job. Now suddenly looks like he's got 4 for 2, all of whom look competent, and he looks like he has 4 full-backs that are competent for 2 positions. The midfield area might be less so, and Dembele is still a bit of the team. Every game he starts, he has to go off after an hour or 65, 70 minutes. I don't think you can rely on him for sure. Lo Celso looks like he's a good option in that position. Højbjerg and Sissoko have talked about good in stopping the opposition playing, a disruptive obstacle, I'd say, for opposition. But can they create when the other side of the game is necessary? That remains to be seen. The attacking part of the pitch we've spoken about, and we know they've options. Not much of Bale yet, but we may see him emerge as the season goes on.
What about Arsenal then? 15th in the Premier League table. They've lost 5 of the last 7. I think it's 1 goal from open play in their last 6 matches. Aubameyang had half a chance tonight, but he just looks a shadow of the player who was so brilliant and who carried them through so well over the last couple of seasons. What is the outlook for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta right now?
Not very good. 13 points after 11 games is quite dire from their point of view, I'd say. And, you know, all the early optimism that was there because they won the Cup last year in the Community Shield, which kind of came together fairly quickly given there was no great break in the season. There was a lot of optimism that he had sorted out some of the issues. Initially went to back 3, not today, but to solve some of their defensive frailties, and that looked like it was working. Then he changed. I think after the Aston Villa match, having beaten Manchester United 1-0, which was their best win of the season, next match with more or less the same team, they were destroyed by Aston Villa 3-0. So then he goes to a back 4 and hopes that that'll come along and work out for them, but it hasn't really. They've got problems because obviously conceding a few goals, I think that's 14 they've conceded in the league, which is not drastic, but the problem is that conceding them at vital times. And when you look at the match today where they were open in the middle of the field, the stability you're hoping for Partey, who a lot has been invested in him. I thought he did okay today. He did quite well up until he got the injury and walked off the pitch at the wrong time when Spurs were counter-attacking. Arteta actually tried to push him back onto the pitch, and I think he did further damage to the injury in trying to stop that Spurs attack. But, you know, it's up front, the creation of chances, that's not happening. Depend on whipped-in crosses from Bellerin and Tierney, not enough there. Aubameyang, his confidence seems to have evaporated. Lacazette is a bit in and out, not sure where he's going to start or not. Started today. I thought he did quite well playing that number 10 position, but unfortunately the balance behind him of Xhaka and Partey didn't work out, and Ceballos come on, didn't make an awful lot of difference. So not in great shape at the moment, Arsenal. Badly need to get a couple of victories. A couple of games coming up which I think are not the hardest. Burnley, Everton, there's one other one there I think coming up soon that I'd say they should have a fair chance in. But right now I'd say confidence has been drained. The manager is talking great game, but the team needs to start doing it on the pitch for the manager, or else there's going to be, you know, further turmoil between now and the end of the season. I don't see the manager being under pressure, but at least I think there's questions been asked, and I think, you know, the idea of, well, we get the man, we have the man, we know the man, he's never managed before, but we know he's the right man. There's some questions about that now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, your Mo supported our frontline workers this Movember.